That's right. It's the inevitably nonsensical, yet hopefully enjoyable, After Movie Diner Season 2. Like all good sequels, in Season 2, you can expect us to ramp up the action, gore, expletives, gratuitous mentions of Donald Pleasance, and, of course, the requisite nudity. So, when you hear this noise,
moisten.
Remove your first item of clothing. And make it something good, not just a sock or a polka dot neckerchief or something. If you enjoy the show and have pursued the recommended treatment from your medical providers, why not support the show on Patreon over at patreon.com/aftermoviediner. Rate and review the show wherever podcasts are found, and rating and reviewing is possible. Even a 1-star review provides useful insights on exactly the sort of petty-minded and wretched individual who negatively reviews free entertainment they do not need to be consuming. So, without further dribbling, please put down your lemon meringues, silence your bowels, and rub 2 nearby dogs together for the one, the only, John Cross.
How is it with you, the man behind the Moxie? How are you doing, sir?
Good. Yeah, it's the weather's getting cooler here, which is nice. My nephew is going to school at Rutgers. He started last week, so he's 18. He and a friend visited Philadelphia on Friday. I got off pretty easy because I took them out for pizza, and it was kind of a fancier pizza place, but they just split a small pizza between the two of them. I get $40. I was in and out. I was like, okay, I'm supposed to be. I'm going mad. I'm supposed to be like. I think the thing is that they're so new to college right now,
right?
That they're not out of money yet.
No.
So in a couple of years, he's going to come down and it's going to be like, yeah, buy me everything, and I'm just going to pack it all in a bag and take it back to school with me.
Yeah, but this time you got to be cool, laid back,
Right.
Uncle Matt. And I'm
Right.
glad you brought it up, Matt, because I don't know if you noticed, but you're obviously wearing your Moxie hat. It is always wonderful to see when you are podcasting. I, on the other hand, like to mess around with my headgear. Sometimes I wear some, sometimes I don't. Tonight, Matt, in the theme of pizza, it's almost like you knew. It's almost like it was the perfect segue. This is one of my favorite, it's weirdly enough, not one of my favorite pizza places in New York, but my favorite hat of any pizza place. It's Vito's, and my favorite thing is it says slices and ices.
Right.
I just think that, Matt, if you're going to have something on a hat, first of all, the Vito's font, phenomenal.
Right. Yes,
right?
I love that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's perfect.
Secondly, slices and ices as a tagline to a pizza place. I mean, that is some fantastic work by Vito, whoever he is. I certainly do not veto that idea, Matt. Sorry.
Now, ices, is that Italian ice?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I would assume so from a place called Vito's.
Right. Because here in Philly, they call it they call it water ice, but they pronounce it water ice. And my friend who went to college with me, who lives down here as well, he can't handle that term because he's just like, well, what is ice if it's not water? Like what are you talking about? And I don't even know where the term came from. Why they couldn't say Italian ice, they had to say water ice. But
right. I mean, look, people will do funny things, Matt, and that's okay. I think I've got to the point where trying to explain to people where they're going wrong is far behind me because it hasn't worked. In fact, all that's happened is that people have doubled down on being wrong. People have just continued to be wronger than people normally were wrong. People have taken wrongness to a whole new level of wrong we thought hitherto previously impossible.
Right.
But as it is, no. Every day, a new shade of wrong to be sauteed in wrong sauce and served up to a customer of wrongness, a customer base full of wrongness. And that's where we're living. And it is into this maelstrom of madness that we pour the warm and inviting building and booths of none other than the After Movie Diner. And tonight, ladies and germs, we start a new chapter for the After Movie Diner. We have cast off the shackles of sleazy Spader springtime just as the fall has kicked in. It has only taken us the entire summer. If people are not aware, right now I'm wearing a hoodie. This hoodie actually belongs to a full top and bottom tracksuit because I have well and truly slipped into the nadir of my existence when you are wearing hoodie and sweatpants that intentionally match because you bought them as a pair. You're either in an ironic Guy Ritchie movie or you are slipping well into your middle age. And that's where I am, Matt, and I'm not ashamed of it.
No.
Nor am I ashamed of the wonderful coincidence that my green hoodie is matching with my green hat and the red and white and Vito's is matching with my Night Beast t-shirt. I did not intend any of this, but it happened and it's beautiful.
It's all the color palette, right? Is all I'm wearing. I don't know if you can see. I'm wearing my my Mr. Celery guy. Wilmington Blue Rocks. Carolina League champions, which is no longer called the Carolina League. Now it's the South Atlantic League. It's a single A baseball out of Wilmington, Delaware. So
but you've got the T-shirt there, and so how are you a supporter of that particular team, or was it just the case that you went along with some chums and thought, oh, that shirt will do?
Well, yeah. So what happened was they play. You can take the commuter rail to Wilmington from here. So obviously, the Phillies play a mile from where we live. But I was like, I've been kind of curious about this Wilmington team. They have this Mr. Celery, this guy in a celery costume who runs around whenever they score a run. And it was like his day, Mr. Celery guy with the bobblehead and everything. I was like, I should just go do that. And I got to take it for my wife, and she didn't feel up to going. I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to go. And I went, and I was like, this isn't a bad deal. I've only been one other time since because it is much more difficult to go there than to some extent, it's actually. If I take the Amtrak to New York, it's not that much more difficult. I mean, I guess the Mets, you got to take the 7 train all the way out to Queens, but but it's not that much work. Like it's only that extra subway because I've got to walk a mile from the train station just to get to where Wilmington is. So it's kind of a weird idea that it's easier to get to a Yankees or a Mets game than it is a minor league game in Wilmington, Delaware. But I guess that's the reality. Yeah,
I mean, I think people want people to go to the Yankees or the Mets. Whereas the pickle team are thankful for whoever they get. Celery team, not the pickle team.
Celery team.
Sorry, the celery team are thankful for whoever they can get in the stands. Now, I wish, Matt, as you well know, that we lived in the reverse of that world. Because although I am a Yankees fan and enjoy New York baseball, I would rather people be going to the celery team itself in Wilmington, Delaware. Because how charming... How heartwarming, how American, dare I say it, Matt, dare I say it, how American the Celery League. And what I want to know, and I think what all the listeners want to know, Matt, is did Mr. Celery Man have a song, like an accompanying song?
It's Blur's song too, so very original.
Oh, no. I meant, did Celery Man have like a, hey, it's Celery Man.
No,
he's running around doing just what he can. No,
that's what I mean. Like whenever they scored a run, right, the Blur, they play song 2 by Blur, and he would run out to song 2. So he doesn't get it. Yeah. Isn't that like,
That's disappointing.
Right. He should have his own Mr. Celery. Yeah.
He should have, first of all, his own Mr. Celery song.
Right.
Second of all, I understand Blur song 2 is exciting and vibrant and whatever, but I'm sorry. What on earth has Blur song 2 got to do with baseball at all? I'm disappointed, Mr. Celery Man, and I take back my endorsement of your league. I'm joking. I have no care.
No, well, because the team that plays in Brooklyn, the Cyclones, they play in the same league as the Celery. Yeah,
as the Celeries.
Yeah, exactly. I guess they're the Blue Rocks. They have a moose as one mascot.
Yeah.
They have the Rock as a second one. But I guess when they took over the field in Wilmington, they were rooting around and they found this big celery mascot costume. And they were like, well, why don't we use that for something?
Okay, now you're putting me off even more because now they have more mascots than Geico. And I fucking hate Geico with a passion reserved for child molesters and former presidents.
Right.
But it's so enough with multiple mascots. Says the man who has 85 Instagram accounts for his various different, basically, mascots. Anyway, I'm nothing if not hypocritical, yet mildly amusing. But as I said, the after-movie diner, Matt, is entering a new age. The new age of the after-movie diner. And no, it doesn't mean that I'm going to be doing ASMR for the rest of the show. Wait while I just rustle this thing of candies. Is that what ASMR? Am I doing that right?
I think it is. So my wife will sometimes find ones on Instagram. It's kind of more of a joke, but it's like a cat like eating treats or something, and it says ASMR or whatever. It's just the cat just crunch.
It's just the difficulty is that ASMR sounds like a sexual practice that is undertaken by swingers in the 70s. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Come round for another one of those ASMR parties, Vera. Off we go.
Well, that's Vito's. You think about Vito's, like that's the other place. Vito's could be a swingers place in the 70s, you know.
Vito's, yeah. Come on down to Vito's. Haven't met your match yet? Don't worry. We got couples galore. They don't mind who you are. You know, whatever. Whatever sexual peccadillos. If you're into ASMR, we are fine. Come on down to Vito's, the ASMR lounge.
Right. We got the ASMR. We got all the ASMR you want.
Yeah. Oh, we got ASMR lying around. Don't worry about it. No one's shy down here. Come on, get your A, your S, your M, and your R down here right away. That one can only imagine. But yes, so the new after movie diner, which is not an ASMR show, I promise you, is basically the same show it's always been to some extent. But we're going to go forward with sort of. It's basically all around. It's going to be, rather than necessarily talking about like my favorite movies of all time or going back and talking about popular movies, I'm going to talk about movies that I haven't seen at all, but also movies that I probably should have seen, which is to say movies that star people that I normally watch most of the stuff that they're in. But there are movies from those people that are, and I don't mean obscure movies. There are key titles by those people that I haven't seen. For example, and I'm going to shock the listening several right now. I'm going to make this is going to be the gasp heard around the world. Yeah. But I have never seen all of The Great Escape, which is Donald Pleasance's. It's the film most people know Donald Pleasance from until Halloween, basically. Yeah. It's The Great Escape. I've seen enough clips from it that I'm sure I can tell you what happens in it. I've seen like hundreds of clips, from documentaries and from, various different things, but never seen the whole movie. That is a Donald Pleasance film that me, as the quintessential Donald Pleasance fan, considering I've seen the Italian obscure slasher detective movie Nothing Underneath, right. I should probably have seen The Great Escape. I own it. So maybe that'll be one that we'll talk about down the road. But Michael Fitzgerald gave me the idea because a long-time listener and avid supporter, he has often supported us on Patreon. I don't know why other people don't support us on Patreon. Support us on Patreon, you fucks. Does that work if I threaten you?
I got my first Patreon episode with Mo. So I get to see, Mo's the pink microphone, I think. Was that the one we had the pink microphone?
The pink microphone, yeah. Well, that's the other thing. So yes, if you subscribe to us on Patreon, not only do you get it early, so you get the episode several days early, but you also get the video which will not be seen anywhere else. I also often, not always, but often splice in stuff to the video that you genuinely won't get anywhere else. Also, the video tends to be completely uncut, so you see all the bloopers, spoilers, and everything. We, on the other hand, the podcast, on the other hand, I remove certain things from it. So you get all that, plus you can get songs written about you, you can get T-shirts, mugs, you can get your name read out on air, all sorts of good shit over on the Patreon. So go support us on Patreon, you fucks. So yeah, we're going forward with movies by people I really probably should have seen but haven't. Preferably ones that I own, so it makes it even more ridiculous that I own it but I haven't seen it. Then we are going to kind of be also delving into my VHS archive, which is basically, since I started my movie store, Be Kind Movie Vault, very often, if I was purchasing large boxes of random VHS, there would be sort of 75% I'd want to sell, and then 25% where I was like, ooh, Beaks the Movie. What the ass is Beaks the Movie? I better check out Beaks the Movie, for example. So I often kept back sort of 20 or 25% and put them in a pile and kind of said, well, I should watch those. Yeah. And so the After Movie Diary is going to be a good excuse for me to watch those, and a good excuse for me to get caught up on movies I really should have seen but haven't, often starring people that you know that I like, preferably movies that I own. I'm going to shorten it down to ASMR, and we're going to move on from there. But this is a new age of the After Movie Dynamite. We are. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be easier, simpler, stripped down, but I think covering more interesting fare.
Yeah, I when you brought it up to me, I think there's probably a combination depending on the ones, like for example, Great Escape. That's one I'm kind of surprised that you haven't, just because that's one of those ones that was on TV like every weekend. It was
right. Well, that's what I mean is I've seen a ton of it. Like I've tuned into it, but I've never seen it from start to finish, and I can put the pieces together in my head. No, I was always a I'm not a big wartime movie guy, but I was always a Where Eagles Dare chap, because I always liked the Clint Eastwood, Richard Burton sort of duo. So I was always a Where Eagles Dare kind of fellow. But being such a Donald Pleasance fan, I should really see that role of his, because it is such a well-known role. The other Pleasance I haven't seen that I probably should is, of course, Polanski's Cul-de-sac. But obviously it was post a lot of the Polanski palaver. And so part of me was like, well, I don't know what I want to watch that yet. But it's got Pleasance in it. And also, to be honest, as I slide into middle age, I just don't care.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be like one thing, and I totally know what you're saying, because it'd be like, it's like if like suddenly like Marvel announced that like, oh, he's going to be directing the second Avengers movie, the 2 Avengers movies that are coming out. I'd be like, I don't think Marvel should be giving that guy tens of millions of dollars to be making a movie.
Right. But that would be amazing if Marvel were just like, we are, after the success of Deadpool and Wolverine, which was, incredibly graphic, incredibly gory, full of swear words, completely bizarre and baffling, and yet thoroughly enjoyable. We are now giving the reins over to Marvel. Not just one movie, Matt. The whole reins of the Marvel Cinematic Universe to Roman Polanski and Woody Allen.
Right, exactly. With Dr. Doom, instead of being Robert Downey Jr., but Mel Gibson. We'll make him Mel Gibson.
Definitely. Mel Gibson and James Woods, starring in Woody Allen and Roman Polanski's Avengers 3, written by Louis C.K. and produced by Harvey Weinstein. Also, the world is a terrible, 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 fucked up place. And just by listening to this podcast on your iPhone, you are killing children. So, you know what I mean? So, let's keep the pearl clutching to a minimum, the internet. But I think I've said it before on the podcast, but we've talked about the whole like Yeti thing, right?
Right.
And the fact that at the moment we're like, oh my God, it cools my water so well. But we will find out 10 years from now that Yetis are made by fucking murdering otters with a hammer.
Yes. Yeah.
And the only way that you can get the cooling mechanism or whatever that's in a Yeti is by murdering otters Like, not even, like, you can't even do it gently. You have to really slaughter the fucking otter with a hammer. And that's how you get Yetis. And everyone would be like, well, you know.
Yeah. One of these days I'm going to pop onto Twitter or whatever, you know, and it's going to be like, Yeti is trending. And I'm like, here it is.
Here it is.
This is it.
Yeah. Here it is. John called it that they were murdering otters. John nailed it. Podcaster John Cross, 5 years ago, in a Simpsons-esque prediction of things to come, called it that Yeti are bastards.
That's going to be the Vox article that they're going to track down this episode. They're going to be like, you know, September 3rd, 19, you know, right. Podcaster John Cross, you know, who would have thought that 2 years later you know.
Podcaster John Cross was also seen wearing a Vito's Slices and Ices cap from New York City. What he didn't know, or maybe he did, was that Vito's was a front for a money laundering society of Italian Americans, and that the ices were ice picks in the hearts of children. Tonight, David Muir looks at... Fucking David Muir. Right. Tonight, David Muir looks in the mirror for 45 minutes and goes, oh, I have wonderful hair. Put me in a war zone so that my wonderful hair can blow in the wind.
Yeah, what is David Muir? It's like they pulled him out of a PM Entertainment. He's like the lawyer in a one scene part of a PM Entertainment movie where like the cops are tracking somebody down and they go to this beautiful office that they somehow got like out of silk stockings or something. Yeah. He's got like the double-breasted suit with the glasses and the hair, and you know, Jack Scalia questions him for 5 minutes, and that's his one scene. Somehow he became the anchor of one of the three major broadcast news.
Yeah. He looks like a guy who plays a sleazy lawyer in a Casper Van Dien movie.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? Either that or like the lead henchman.
Yes.
Like you've got the original bad guy who's like Joe Don Baker or someone.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or Emmett was someone with three names anyway. Right. And then Lou Diamond Phillips or whatever. Right, yeah. And then you have the first henchman who's always coming over with like a earpiece in his, you know, like a little customer service earpiece on his ear to come over and be like, sir, the trucks are in position or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yes.
And that's what David Muir looks like. For people who don't know David Muir, don't Google him. It'll just encourage David Muir's. And I've had enough of him. So don't Google David Muir. Just take it for granted that you'll be encouraging the Muir, and I've got no time for him.
Right. Well, because it used to be that like the person that was like the anchor of the news was somebody. And I guess maybe that's I'm so out of touch with like, I don't want to say mainstream media, but like, you know, kind of that I guess like a guy like that could sneak in.
Right.
And you know, like he wasn't, I mean, was he a White House correspondent at some time or something?
I don't know.
Or was it really they just pulled him off the set of a PM Entertainment movie in the 90s and plunked him down in 2024 or whatever and said, here you go.
Yeah. The head of the Disney Corporation was like, you'll never believe who I saw in one of our subsidiary, partly owned sort of whatever company, PM Entertainment. What is that? Hair Disney? Well, so a guy playing this lawyer, I want him on my news network. Stat. Yeah. All right. But yeah, no, I don't know where Muir comes from, nor do I care to you know, figure it out. What I will say is it's really bizarre. Even big icons like Oprah Winfrey or Jerry Springer or whatever, who, by the way, are exactly the same kind of person. How Oprah Winfrey got this angelic fucking reputation and Jerry Springer is considered the peddler of filth. You both fucking peddled for... Oprah Winfrey peddled people's emotions and bullshit as her own fucking currency, and never ever forget it. Oprah speaks for us. Oprah's the queen. Oprah's God. I'm sorry. Oprah is an opportunist who fucking milked middle America for everything it was worth. So don't fucking act like Oprah. Anyway, John Cross doesn't like Oprah Winfrey, but will support child pedophile Woody Allen. Also suggests that you should go throw out his Weinstein collection. Also is wearing a money launderer's hat. Also says to listen to his podcast on a device that kills children. Tonight on David Muir. He's no fan of mine either. No, there's something to do with the way that David Muir is. I can tell, You know when someone's trying to pretend to be genuine?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When someone like comes up to you and they're like, now listen, Matt, I genuinely care, or something like that. And you're like, wait, I'm smelling your bullshit a fucking mile away, right?
Yes, right.
People who are overly earnest.
Yeah.
People who have they have no irony gland.
Yeah.
Like they're just like, oh, they'll see someone fall over or whatever in a funny way. You know what I mean? Like a truckload of bananas capsizing, right? And someone walking along just does a ridiculous big slip, lands on the bananas, is perfectly safe, but you laugh. There's always that one person who goes, yes, you are laughing, but have you not considered that they might be hurt? Right. Those sort of people, right, I find to be the most disingenuous, lying, possibly psychotic people. And David Muir is that person. Because when I watch David Muir report on something very serious, he has a face that he goes into. He's like, behold my furrowed brow of worry. He puts it on. And once he's put that face on, I can't believe anything that comes out of his mouth. Because all I hear in his head, all that's going round and round his head is, I'm David Muir and I'm damn important. Right. I'm David Muir and I'm damn important. Like that's all that's going on in his head. Meanwhile, he's being like, thousands die in hurricane. Right. I'm David Muir and I'm damn important.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is like, he's like, on the scene at the hurricane is, and he's like, got this, like you said, it's that face of just like,
oh, so smackable.
Right. And it's just like, okay, all right. Yeah. Because it's exactly the face of you're not getting this brief, Jack Scalia, no matter what you and then you finally, yes, I'll hand it over to you, Jack. I mean, it's like,
And it's the sort of bad acting that one would see in a Jack Scalia movie. Even though Jack Scalia is wonderful and we love Jack Scalia, often the subsidiary characters in a PM Entertainment were not pulled from a pool of extreme talent.
They were pulled from local cafes and restaurants.
That's
generally where they. We were joking. Chris Kavinsky from Bulletproof. We were watching Sweepers, and Janet Gunn is wearing a waitress outfit because she's supposed to be co-owning a restaurant with her new husband. And we were joking that no, she was just being pulled between shifts. It was like, hey, can you come do a scene here? I'm on my shift at the restaurant. Just stay dressed in that. That's fine. Just come on.
Just say no, Jack. Don't go in there. And then run away. I think I can manage that. But yes, exactly. So I do not believe David Muir. I do, however, believe that the world is just a absolute hideous place because just by living in it, you are culpable. If you've eaten food, you are culpable. If you have an iPhone, you are culpable. If you've driven a car, you are culpable. So there's no... We're all tainted, Matt. We're all tainted. As I said earlier before, we are doing movies that are from my VHS archive and from actors and filmmakers who I really should have seen something of, but have not. And so tonight's bizarre yet, I think, wonderfully over the top and ridiculous double act is The Kiss from 1988. This is a VHS classic. But also, Matt, fits into both categories because it also stars Meredith Salenger. I'm something of a fan. I've seen a lot of her work. I've not seen The Kiss. So it sort of falls in both camps. And then following up from The Kiss, it is for Michael Fitzgerald, a supporter of the podcast and someone who has requested this for many years. It is Kurt Russell in the movie Soldier.
Yeah.
Matt, we will start with The Kiss. What knoweth you of Meredith Salenger? Anything or nothing?
I found out that she's married to Patton Oswalt. I think that's the only thing I knew. So I discovered that. I thought I had recognized her from other stuff, but I actually don't. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure. I've seen some of the other stuff that she's done, but. Yeah.
So she's famous for a Disney movie called The Journey of Natty Gann, which is our dog is named after that movie because Kim is a big fan when she was a child actor. She also is well known for Dream a Little Dream.
That's the one. That's
the Two Coreys movie.
Yeah.
And she was in John Carpenter's remake of Village of the Damned, which, while not very good, at least she can claim to Patton Oswalt, a big fan of John Carpenter, hey, honey, you know that I've been in a John Carpenter movie. Right. And he'll get all excited and aroused. Not that I want to think of Patton Oswalt being aroused, but he would get all aroused. Really? You were in a John Carpenter movie? You were in a John Carpenter movie? And just before the moment of truth, she's going to whisper, it was Village of the Damned, and he is going to completely deflate and not be aroused any longer. Yeah. Because look, she gets to say she was in a John Carpenter movie. Good for her. Yeah. But no, it's not one of his better ones. So yeah, she's known for The Journey of Natty Gann. She is known for A Night in the Life of Jimmy Reardon with, I was going to say with Wings House. I just have Wings House on the brain. River Phoenix is what I meant to say. Right. And she was good friends with River Phoenix. Clearly they hit it off on that movie. The Kiss, which we're covering today from 1988, followed up by Dream a Little Dream with the Coreys, followed up by, she went for a second helping of Feldog. She went for a second helping of Corey Feldman while he was deep in the throes of heroin withdrawals. She made the 1991 kids action classic, because we love it when kids have to grab weapons and murder adults, especially around the late 80s, early 90s. There is any number of great movies in which that has to happen. A lot of which we covered on the show with Scott Toomey in our Teen Agents and Kid Spy episode earlier last year. But, so Edge of Honor, she was in an episode from Tales from the Crypt. She was in Village of the Damned. And then since then, sort of darted around TV a little bit. She is in a movie that has got to be one that you've either covered or have to cover soon. And that is No Code of Conduct.
Oh, yes.
With Charlie and Martin Sheen and Mark Dacascos.
Yes, I have done that one. I've done that's not the one that was, no, that's Letters from Death Row. So I think it was, so it was like, they were making these movies with Bret Michaels from Poison. Yeah. So, but I've definitely done it because, it's Charles Sheen, I believe, for No Code of Conduct. He went Charles instead of Charlie. Yes. The bid for seriousness.
Is. Yeah. It's Charles Sheen.
Yeah.
And Martin Sheen and Mark Dacascos.
Yeah.
Along with Paul Gleason, Courtney Gaines, Joe Estevez, so Martin's whipping his brother in there, right. Meredith Salenger, Bret Michaels, lead singer of Poison, and so it's it's got quite a cast. Yes. It's a cop, his partner, and his father uncover a plot by city elders to smuggle drugs from Mexico into Phoenix, Arizona. Yes. When crime is personal, there are no rules.
It has 9 critic reviews, and 4 of them are me, bulletproof, comeuppance, and the video vacuum. That's like what I call the superfecta. It seems like the 4 of us somehow get like these movies. It's somehow the 4 of us seem to get them a lot.
Yes.
And that's one of the ones that the other ones are like TV Guide. I don't know what it's but I don't know what I said on my review for it. I'm sure I wasn't kind to it. I'm sure I definitely made jokes about it. I was like, I said all that talent, which I guess I should have probably put that in quotes, but inverted comments, but I didn't. And the best you can do is bore me to sleep for the first 45 minutes and barely make up for it with a decent half hour. That's so I guess there wasn't a lot that happened in that first 45 minutes, unfortunately.
Apparently not. Meredith Salenger would then go on to be in Lake Placid. People might remember her from the Bridget Fonda, Bill Pullman, and Oliver Platt starring Lake Placid, in which she plays Deputy Sharon Gare. Then she's in a bunch of TV things. She shows up on an episode of Dawson's Creek. She shows up on an episode of Anger Management, back with her old pal Charles Sheen. She was in Mad TV. She was in Grey's Anatomy. She's basically skipped around TV for the last few years and is now known as Baris Offee on Star Wars Tales of the Empire, the animated series.
Yeah.
So that is a quick history of Meredith Salenger. I actually like her. I actually think that she's very beautiful.
Yeah.
So there's that goes without saying.
Right.
A very attractive woman. But I actually think a really good actress, and I actually think someone who could have had or could have been given a lot more of her due and gone on to do some really interesting adult work, I think. And by adult work, I mean as work as an adult, not as in adult work. ASMR. ASMR is adult work. Don't try this at home, children. So yes, Meredith Salenger, brains, beauty, and brawn, Matt. A lethal 3-for combination. And so I was excited as I had had two experiences where first one was Edge of Honor, where that was one of the VHS that cropped up in a box. And I was like, oh, I don't know what that is. Oh, wait, it's got Feldman in it. Oh, wait, it's got Meredith Salenger in it. Yeah. And I watched that, and I believe I gave it a respectable, I think probably 3 or 3.5 off Letterboxd. I pretty enjoyed it. It's something of an oddity in the kids' fight crime kind of movie of the era, but well worth watching, and definitely a sort of, if there's anything that typifies VHS, it's movies like Edge of Honor and movies like The Kiss. This was the second VHS tape that I had plunged into, starring Meredith Salenger, and I don't know about you, Matt. I'm gonna jump in and just say I was not disappointed. In fact, I was as I was with Edge of Honor, thrilled. Matt, did you have fun with this movie? And what did you feel when I asked you to cover a bizarre late 80s horror movie such as this?
So initially, right, when I was initially watching it, I had kind of the similar feeling that I get when I'm on the subway and there's a person sitting next to me who's just like yelling and being just overall making me uncomfortable.
Yes.
But once I kind of was able to kind of get over that and realize the fact that this is a movie. So this is not somebody just sitting next to me that I've got to get through for the next 4 stops before I get to my, that I can just sort of ease into it. I could kind of like relax and let that feeling go and just sort of let this thing be what it was. And it is one of those ones that like like you said, it is a fun ride when it gets going, when you realize that person sitting next to you is not going to bother you, that they're on the other side of a screen and they can't touch you. Then it's like, okay, now I can just sort of let this thing be what it's going to be. And the payoff at the end is like if you make it to the end of the movie, the payoff just
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's definitely one of those movies that builds, right? But even while it's building, and this is what I found kind of remarkable. So I agree. The first 15 minutes or whatever before the big car accident, 15, 20 minutes, you're watching it, you're going, oh, this is going to be one of those straight to VHS movies where no real horror happens and nothing really of any consequence happens. And it's just going to tease me that it's going to be about passing a curse via a kiss from a thing. It's going to tease me, but really it's going to be like a Lifetime movie about bad stepmothers and you're just going to hate yourself at the end of it. Right? The first 15 minutes definitely plays like that. Spoilers. What's coming up is spoilers, and I brought back the spoiler songs because I don't want you to have the film ruined as I go on and on, filled with spoilers. Spoilers. What's coming up is spoilers, and I want you to see the movie clean because it is a very good movie, and if I spoil it for you before you watch it, it won't have the impact it had for me. Well, maybe you're someone who doesn't care about spoilers. I believe there are those people out there. And if you're a person who doesn't care about spoilers, well, good for you. nobody else to see the movie the way that I saw the movie. It was a surprise, and I think this film would benefit from all of you going and watching it before you listen to the rest of the spoilerific episode. Because spoilers. What's coming up is spoilers. So I brought back the spoiler song. If you've been listening to this podcast all along, you'll remember when it started, and I cared more than I do now. I used to do spoiler songs on the ukulele, and lots of people loved it. Well, now I'm bringing it back because I want you to watch this movie. The Kiss starring Meredith Salenger. Then out of the blue, like, you were just like, wait, I was not expecting this movie to have this fucking scene in it, right? They have a massive car wreck engineered by this evil woman in the life of Meredith Salenger, who is purported to be her mother's sister, but is possessed by a demon slug. As you are, it's got something to do with some ritual or whatever that she's trying to pass down to Meredith Salenger, but Meredith's having none of it.
Yeah, right.
None of it, Matt. Yeah. Anyway, you're watching it and you're like, all right, I'm trundling along. Come on, get on with it. Lifetime movie. And then they murder the mother, because the mother's got to get out of the way because the sultry aunt demon slug woman has got to come and ooze her way into the husband's life so that she can pass on her disgusting slug aids to her niece. But what actually happens is there is this massive car wreck where we see like this woman slammed by another truck, then pushed into a building. Then we see her underneath the car, like bloodied and mangled, and when they pull her out, one of her legs stays there.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm sorry to spoil it, by the way. I'm spoiling a movie from 1988.
We got to spoil. You can't talk about this movie without spoiling it.
You have to spoil it because the best bits of this movie are the bits where you're like, wow, I did not see that coming in this movie. Yeah. This movie is like a Lifetime movie, la-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da, and then suddenly I'm seeing amputated legs.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, it was wonderful. Yeah. And congratulations to the special effects artist. Bloody hell, what great work.
Yes. I mean, the thing about that that freaked me out a little bit is that the way people drive here in Philadelphia, I was like, I'm going to try to make sure I'm not anywhere close to walls when I'm walking. I'm going to try to stay kind of more towards, so if the car does come and hit me on the sidewalk, I can kind of fly over the hood and not get pinned and lose limbs. I think that was the lesson that I took from it because, driving in Philadelphia, I was teaching my nephew and his friend about this on Friday when they visited. That I was like, just keep in mind that aggressive driving is encouraged in Philadelphia. But so it gave me a little bit. That was a little bit like I was a little like, oh boy, getting hit by a car. I don't want to, But then you're right. You're like, you think she's just going to get hit by the car, and then, the next thing, we're going to cut to the hospital, and she's going to have the tubes and the beeping and no. And then it's like, okay, there's going to be this, explosion thing. It's like, okay, is that going to be the thing? And it's like, no.
And then it's going to be, by the way, your mum is just fucking dead. She's just dead.
Yeah.
She's dead.
Right.
So, and you're just like, okay. And then and it is her mum's sister, right? It's meant to be her mum's sister? Or is it meant to be her mum's long-lost friend?
No, it's her sister. Yeah, Joanna Pacula is the younger sister. Yeah.
Okay. And who's Mimi Kuzi then?
So Mimi Kuzi is the friend from next door who I believe.
Right.
I think the deal is her husband is never around.
Right.
And so she has sort of become like this. She was almost like kind of the friendly aunt.
She's like the surrogate aunt.
Aunt is, exactly.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So you're completely right. So Joanna Pacula is meant to be the sister, and she is a sultry sex minx. In which, in fact, if you go onto IMDb now, IMDb does an interesting thing. It plays the trailer for the movie that you're looking up in the little window at the top. But then, once that's finished, it starts to play the trailer for other movies that star the cast.
Yeah.
And because she's number one in the thing, the first 4 trailers while I was sat talking to you earlier, Matt, that were playing, because I've got IMDb up on the screen here, that were playing while I was watching were all Joanna Pacula movies, and they're all like sleazy, sultry, alluring woman. Right. You know, they were all movies like that. Like lots of silk and lots of shadows and lots of she's an alluring woman and men who looked like David Muir, perplexed by Joanna Pacula's beauty and seduction techniques. All of the movies were that. And I was like, wow, Pacula really had a type.
Right. Yeah. She has done a new movie with Cynthia Rothrock that hasn't been released, or it's been released somewhere that I don't know where it's been released. It's called Buckle Up. This is the thing with Rothrock's career, her current career, is that she just makes these movies that never make it anywhere. And this, I mean, it's got Sizemore, it's got Bai Ling, it's got Eric Roberts, it's just, you know, Robert Davi, Stacey Keach.
Didn't Tom Sizemore pass away?
He did, right? It came out after he passed. Yeah, he made it before he passed. Of
course, it's got Eric Roberts. Only 10 people have seen it. It looks like a movie that was filmed entirely against green screen.
Right. I think so. Yeah. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know. Again, and it's Rothrock. It seems like she just makes these movies that they either end up like in Russia or something, but I mean,
it's a 6-part series, a modern day Game of Thrones where gangs replace families to take control of London's underworld. I love how London's underworld is being run by Tom Sizemore and Michael Madsen, two least fucking London underground types. What? Ray Winston was busy, was he? Old Winston was busy. You couldn't have got Winston and fucking, I don't know, Tim Roth to show up for 5 minutes and be all blimey Cockney geezers for Buckle Up. Yeah. Instead, we're going to go with Madsen and fucking Sizemore. Right. Just fucking bonkers. If you can only get Sizemore and Madsen for your movie, set it anywhere but London.
Right.
Also, if you're going to basically CGI London while you film them in a green screen in Hollywood, just film it in Hollywood.
I don't know where they filmed it, actually. It doesn't say. It could have been either place. It could have been... my hunch is that it was. It says country. It says filming locations England, UK. So my hunch is that they couldn't film in London, so they just went to some, you know.
Wait, it's got Stacey Keach,
right?
Chuck Liddell, Michael Perez, Robin Asquith is in this movie,
right? Nicolas Cage's son, Weston.
What?
Yeah.
This has got to be a bet or a dare or something.
Right. I don't know what is going on with this thing, but it does the one like common link. It seems to be that whatever Cynthia Rothrock she picks these projects that never get released. I don't know. If you look at like the top part of her bio, her IMDb bio, like most of these movies haven't come out yet. Like they're just there. Yeah, she's a movie called Dying for Living, Lady Scorpions, Operation Dragon, Fire
Lady
Rising.
Scorpions has come out.
Oh, it has finally come out.
I believe I'm going to get a nudge, nudge, wink, wink copy of that.
Okay, so that one finally came out. I think The Last Kumite finally came out.
Last Kumite is in Walmart as we speak.
Right, okay. All right, well, Lady Scorpions, I didn't realize that one's out finally. Okay, so I just got to get it to come down. It's like $14.99 on Prime. Yeah. Okay. All right. So they're finally starting to make it.
I'll shoot you a copy, dude. Don't worry about
it. All right. But yeah, at least they're finally, because I mean, shit. This, what was it? Hostage and Lost Bullet, like these movies that, you know, and yeah, Cynthia Rothrock definitely deserves better. I don't know. Joanna Pacula, and we kind of got off track because it was Joanna Pacula. I don't know if Joanna Pacula. I guess I
was saying Meredith Salenger deserves better.
Right, yeah.
Joanna Pacula deserved all the silken bed sheets, saxophone music, and soft lighting shining through the blinds that she got.
Right.
She deserves all the blah, 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 sensual lady. I'm a cop. She's a sexy broad. We're going to have it away, and it'll compromise the case in many different ways. Because we all saw Basic Instinct. So yes, that is basically the movies Joanna Pacula was in, and God bless her, because we need people like Pacula to warm us on the cold, long nights. The Kiss. Yeah, so The Kiss, it's basically a succubus movie, right? Except that there is some indication in the final showdown that maybe Pacula's body had been taken over, rather than it was Pacula's own desire to be that way, but that Pacula had been charged or chosen with continuing the lineage somehow within her family. you get all the, it is, I mean, it's like a Lifetime movie with blood and guts. Like, you get all the scenes that you would expect with Meredith Salenger being like, "You're not my mother," or whatever, and running away and slamming doors. Right, and then going next door and having cucumber sandwiches with her friend or whatever. Sitting on the counter, which was fairly unhygienic.
Right.
But then coupled with some really pretty great death scenes. Yeah. Like some pretty spectacular shots. And it veers kind of a little bit from kind of action horror, like the car wrecks and car crashes and stuff, and some of the deaths, to like full-blown crazy special effects horror in the final act. Plus, lots of bonking in the movie, I seem to remember.
Yes, yeah. And I don't know if you were going to mention this at some point, but I mean, it's a Canadian production, and it's kind of fitting.
I leave you to bring the knowledge, man. That's what
it's fitting that we're talking about this now, because the most Canadian of movies that is dominating the box office right now, Deadpool and Wolverine, was directed by the be-ponytailed cake deliverer / boyfriend in
Sean
this
Levy.
film. Yes.
Quite a big role. Yes, I was going to bring it up, but I'm glad that you did it, Matt, because you deserve the limelight for that moment. It's true. If people are like, why is he covering the kiss? None of the people. Joanna Pacula, when was she last relevant? Well, she was just in a movie with Cynthia Rothrock and Michael Madsen, so let's not shit on Pacula just yet. Yes. But you're absolutely right, Matt. Sean Levy or Sean Levy, however you want to pronounce it. Levy, I would assume, would have an A in it, but all right. Sean Levy, I'm going to say, is a fairly big part. He plays Meredith Salenger's love interest.
Yeah, and I mean, he's like it. The best part is that you get Chekhov's stud earring. Yeah, and so it's like there's nothing that spells more like 90s teen, like obnoxious kid than the stud earring with the ponytail and like the pastel blazer, and he's driving around dropping off cakes, and he has a thing for Meredith Salenger, she has a thing for him, and they start to kind of hook up a little bit. And
can we talk about the sweater that Meredith Salenger goes to the mall knowing full well she's going to bump into this ponytailed hunk of man love that she wants a slice of along with his cakes. And she decides to wear basically a sweater tent. Right. What's all that about?
Yeah, right. Because apparently, right. Because remember when they leave the house, when the girls leave the house, to show that they were pretending to go hang out with the friends and go to the library or do whatever, but actually no, they're going to the mall to cruise for boys. It's not that they take the sweaters off; they pull off their skirts and reveal that they're wearing mini skirts underneath these big, long, frumpy peasant skirts.
Yeah,
that's the thing. That's like we're sneaking out. It's not but we're going to keep these big sweaters on over top of that.
Yeah, I didn't understand the keeping the big sweaters on, but it was very. People looking back at it now from today's parlance would say it was very Stranger Things. Yeah. Obviously, Stranger Things is very The Kiss. Right. And I'm sure that the writers and producers of Stranger Things were all over this movie.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, so they cruise around the mall as 80s ladies are wont to do. They'll talk to hunky future directors of the largest movie or biggest movie or highest grossing movie practically of all time, right? It's like number 3 or something.
It's the number 1 rated R movie ever, and I guess like for this year, I think that other one, Inside, the cartoon one, is still above it. But yeah, it's like closing in. I think it's going to pass Black Panther for like in terms of Marvel movies. I think it's only going to have the Avengers movies and the Spider-Man, Far From Home, which was the one that was that had all the other Spider-Man in it.
I don't know.
Whatever that recent one was.
Homecoming?
The one that came out most recently that pulled in like 1.9.
Yeah, because isn't it Has a Home, Spider-Man Far From Home, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Spider-Man Coming on Houses, which is the porn version where Spider-Man goes to your roof whether you want him to or not and ejaculates on your house.
All right, so it's not Far From Home because that was...
It's true that Spider-Man ejaculates all over your roof. His shingles drip with his cum.
No Way Home. That's what it was. That was the one combination.
This isn't fun. Oh no, there goes the Spider-Man, the filthy pervert. Shut up or I'll fucking come down your chimney, says Spider-Man.
I feel like based on how Robert Downey Jr. played Tony Stark, that would have been a joke that he might have made. But it was like Marvel, so it was PG-13, so they couldn't make the joke. But I feel
until Ryan Reynolds came along,
right.
And then Downey Jr. was like, wait, Reynolds gets to say fuck, not on my watch. I'm coming back as Doom, and I'm going to put lots of fucks in my movie too.
Right.
Because I like, this is what's surprising to me, and I understand that like not all Marvel characters lend themselves to expletives and lots of gore or whatever, but a lot of them do, especially the way they're being portrayed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That, you know, a lot of them are being portrayed sort of comedically at this point,
right.
And they could all, you know, be cracking wise and having real gore and real blood and mad monsters and everything else. And so I'm surprised at Feige or Feige
right.
or Feige, Kevin Feige. I know everyone says Kevin Feige, but I'm going to say Kevin Feige. Kevin, I was going to say that Kevin Feige opened the floodgates for basically every. So you could have a thing where Spider-Man jumped from house to house.
Yeah.
And maybe because it's Marvel, he's not whipping out the young spider penis and spreading his web liberally all over the roof. But maybe he just lands, and as he lands, he has an unfortunate premature ejaculation in his spider suit.
Right.
So he just lands on the roof and goes, oh, bollocks. Then he jumps onto the next roof and the same thing happens again. Right. And it's just one Spider-Man lands on your roof. Yeah. He is coming, whether he likes it or not.
Right. I mean, it does sound strange. I mean, you would think that Stan Lee or whoever, you know, Steve Ditko, whoever it was that created Spider-Man, they had to have recognized the onanist quality to the web shooter. Like, you know, like what is, you know, that's...
Look at Matt busting forth with the onanist term. My goodness, is it that time already? Matt, the educated linguist that he is. The cunning linguist, one might say. Matthew,
cunning linguist.
You're absolutely right, Matt. The web shooter... Well, no, because either way, whether he makes it himself or whether it's organic to him, because I know that in the Raimi ones it's organic to him, but in the comic books he makes it like a wrist thing, right? Which, by the way, is just weird.
Right.
It makes more sense the Sam Raimi way.
Right.
Because it's a little bit David Cronenberg's The Fly, or it's a little bit the original Fly, or whatever. It's a little bit like, look, if you're genuinely going to take on the effects of a spider, you might get web shooting out of you. Now, technically it would be the ass, but they can't have Spider-Man swinging from his ass cheeks. So... Cronenberg,
I think, would have...
But the idea that Raimi made them organic, I actually think makes more sense.
Yeah.
Rather than him going, well, wait, I can climb walls and I'm a bit strong. Well, I must be a spider, in which case I'll fashion web slingers. Yeah. No, the only way you would fashion web slingers if you knew for 100%, because you had all of the spider things. And because you'd been bitten by the spider, the web... It just seems weird that he would then go build the web. You know what I'm trying to get at, Matt? I'm not being very eloquent at all.
No, but I know. I totally know what you mean. I mean, like you said, it makes more sense that he could just shoot them himself. And like you said, I wonder if that's what it was. I wonder if it was like Stan Lee was like, I don't like the idea of the web. Like maybe that was the original plan, that the webs were going to shoot out of his ass. Like, no, we can't do that. The comic code will kill us if he's shooting webs at. But that's what spiders do. They shoot the webs. No, we can't do that. Well, what can we do instead? Well, what if he can't shoot webs at all? But because he's a kid who does science in school, kids who do science in school are smart. They could create the web. Okay, that's what we'll do. That's what we'll,
Yeah, they wanted to stay away from the organic. Right. But I think that we want to move even more towards the organic and just have him shooting vast quaffs of frothy webbing all over people's roofs.
Right.
And it's spider splooge, it is running down your roof. Creamy white in the night. You can't move for Spider Splooge. He's New York's friendliest neighborhood spider. He came on my roof.
Right.
He came on my roof too, Jack. Really? Good God, Alan, what is going on? He just came on Gladys's roof. He came on Gladys's roof. Look at him, he's coming on all the roofs. And so on. That would be my episode of Spider-Man. Please don't sue me, Marvel, Disney, whoever else owns Spider-Man, Sony. I mean, they could all come after us, man. We'd be fucked.
They're all yeah. I'm surprised J.P. Dunleavy didn't do, something like the Ginger Man, but it's like a guy who just walks around who's got spider abilities and ejaculates everywhere. And it's like, that's, and it's like, yeah, and you give him some kind of kooky name, Larry Nectarine or something like that. And it's like, yeah.
Larry Nectarine.
It's like
the ejaculating spider. So back to the kiss. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done. I really liked the fact that it went from 0 to 60 pretty quickly and then back down to 0 and then back up to 60. It sort of rattled and shook you for most of the movie. And I thought the effects were pretty great. I thought the woman who's come to seduce your father kind of plotline, hackneyed though it is, was done pretty well. Mm-hmm. And I thought the effects, the gore, it was surprising to me. Now, if I went into this a second time or a third time or a fourth time, am I having the same amount of fun with it? I don't know.
Right.
But I would strongly recommend that people watch this knowing as little as possible, which will be very difficult after what we've just talked about.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the other piece of this that I actually enjoyed, when you're talking about Meredith Salenger, and I don't know how I would have enjoyed this as well if Meredith Salenger's character wasn't like creeped out by Joanna Pacula's character right from the get-go. I think if there'd been like this period where she liked her, thought she was really cool. Oh, you're a model. You do all these things. Oh, you're so cool and all this stuff. I think if she had done that at all, of course, it would have bogged the movie down. But I think I wouldn't have had as much fun with it. The fact that Meredith Salenger is like right from the beginning is just like, This woman's a creep. Get her out of here. I don't want her around, And then she finds out her dad slept with her. And it's like, I mean, I think that helped kind of as this, because it's almost like we had Meredith Salenger as our anchor while all this crazy stuff is going on around us. We had someone we could anchor onto.
Yeah, no, completely. Meredith Salenger is entirely, and like you say, she is not, and thank you for bringing this up, she is not your typical, woman who's going to come under the thrall of the sexy, interesting aunt who's got stories of fame, wealth, and fortune. On the other hand, she's going to be completely suspicious and hate everything about it because she's already getting sick and tired of her dad not being around as much and... he's working a lot and stuff.
Right, he's working. He's also drinking screwdrivers at 10 in the morning. Yes.
Right. He's the father's clearly on. Like any other, if you nudge this movie a little bit a certain way, it could become, that Kids in the Hall sketch with the depressed father coming home. Did you clean the house today, boy? Yeah, I cleaned the house. Okay, good. How about the gun? Did you clean the gun? I love Kids in the Hall is my favorite. I fucking love Kids in the Hall. They're so good.
Yeah, I agree. I've got to watch them again because it's been so long since I've seen them.
Did you clean the gun? Yeah, good. And then you just see, it's so dark as well.
Right, yeah.
Because he just walks into the house. As he walks into the house, perfectly timed, his suitcase bursts open. And all the paper falls out. Yeah. And he just walks upstairs dragging the suitcase. He goes inside. You hear like a fucking gunshot. Then you hear, ow! Then you hear like another gunshot, I think. I think there's at least 2 gunshots.
You're right.
And then it cuts back to the kid's face.
Yeah.
And that's what we were laughing at in the 90s, Matt.
Yes. Yeah. Well, because those guys could sell it. They could sell it in ways that were that crew, they could pretty much sell. They sold that. The stuff that they sold on that show, the stuff that I found funny on that show, you're absolutely correct. Like if I told somebody about it after, they'd probably, really? That's the joke? It's like, I don't know.
They just do it so fucking well. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Anyway, we keep veering away from this movie, which makes people think that we didn't like it. I, on the other hand, did like it. I will definitely, I don't know whether this be an annual watch, but it'll be one of those things where when October rolls around and I'm trying to find 31 horror movies to satiate my bloodlust, this might be one that I put in. Mainly because of the kills. Let's talk about some of the kills. Matt, what were some of your favorite death scenes in the film? Well,
I mean, just the fact that because he's the guy who directed Deadpool, I mean, he gets kind of the Vincent Gallo in Miami Vice treatment. But it's one of those things where you're like, he's trying to be like this macho guy. So he like walks in on Pacula doing this ridiculous, ritual, and she just lets him walk out. He just runs away. But Chekhov's stud earring, we had already established that the stud earring keeps falling out. And of course, you got to look stylish in the early 90s if you're Sean Levy.
Oh, yes, because she needs something of the person in order to make them be able to project death on them when she's not near them. Right?
Yeah.
Sorry, am I making much sense?
No, that's exactly, they can't do it because like when the best friend gets killed at the mall, which that was the one that freaked me out because she doesn't really die. They just, but
the fucking
the escalator
being eaten by the escalator. That's insane. She has her whole like face ripped off, or scalp ripped off, or
right. Well, they don't show it. They just kind of just have like the splashing corn syrup.
Oh, so good though, man.
It's just good. You're just like, I can't believe that. I had to pause it after that one. I was like, I can't believe that they just did that. I just, but they did it. And it's because she left her sunglasses behind,
Right, that's it. That's another one. But I also love the ceremonial, like, accoutrement. Just so they send someone out to like a thrift store and when just pick stuff up that looks vaguely odd. You know what I mean? Like they've got like runes and little like stones, and there's like a joss stick burning, and there's a little monkey skull or something. Like it's just sort of there's a domino, or like it's just sort of there's a checkers piece with a whatever, and a little rubber duck, and it's just whatever. Go down to Dollar General and buy 8 of the weirdest fucking things you can find. You know what I mean?
Well, because I think if you've got a director named Penn Densham, which this guy's named Penn Densham, I feel like that's exactly how he would make a movie. Like, I feel like if you ate at his house, right, he'd have like a really great bottle of wine. The fish would be like perfectly prepared. The vegetables, the root vegetables would have been picked that day. Like all that would have been fantastic. But for the movie, it would have been send the prop guy or whatever down to the thrift store, just get whatever you can, and we'll just lay it out here, and it's fine. That's how a Penn Densham feels to me.
Now, when you see Penn Densham's photograph on IMDb, you are not far wrong. Penn Densham was born in Harrow, Middlesex, England. But what he looks like, well, I tell you exactly, he looks like someone in England who came into money. Right. People who come into money in England, unless they're aristocracy. Right. If they're aristocracy, they're used to money. Right. If they're just regular schmoes and they come into money, it doesn't sit well with them, but they try really hard. That's what Penn Densham looks like. He looks like someone who's come into money. Like, obviously, the hair dye in the photograph on IMDb is not fooling anyone, Densham. You were born in 1947. No one believes that those golden brown locks are really yours, my friend. There is some fucking Maybelline or L'Oreal or whoever makes that shit inside that hair. I'm telling you that right now. And I know that Densham's been doing his eyebrows with one of those little brushes. So yes, Penn Densham. Now, Matt, what do we feel about people who were directors and then went on to producing? My feeling is you're either a producer, like you're either like, this is what I am, I'm a producer, right? Or you're maybe someone who came up through the ranks of sort of second unit director, assistant director, whatever it is, and then you become a producer. Yeah. If you're a full-blown director, he makes 3 movies, 3 features, and then a TV movie, and then immediately goes into script writing for bad TV series and producing. And I feel like producing is the job. If you begin as a producer or work your way up to producer, it's a prestigious role. Yeah. If you are a director making movies and a writer. If he wasn't a writer, I'd be like, all right, fine. But because he's a writer, he's got an invested creative interest in his output.
Yeah.
So he didn't want to be a producer. He didn't just want to be like, how are we going to pay for the chairs in Botswana? Right. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't want to be that guy. But, you know, he that's where it comes from, right?
Yeah.
He wanted to be a writer-director. He tried his hand at that, and Hollywood was like, no, you're not doing it. So in other words, so then he falls into producing. And I feel like producing, you can sort of get away with. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. Because, yeah, I was trying to think of, like, the best, like kind of as you're talking about this, like what the best example, you know, of this kind of thing is. But you're absolutely right. I guess there's kind of two types of producers that direct. There are the ones who they've had to fire the director because they fought too much, and there's like 10% of the film left, and they do it, and the director's like, I don't want any credit for this movie, and so they take the credit for it. So there's that kind of producer director, or there's this kind here who they do like a movie like The Kiss, and it's either like I can be a hired gun and do movies that are kind of iffy, or I can be a producer on something like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and make more money.
But I feel like being a producer on Robin, there's got to be 7 bazillion producers on Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. I mean, you're not telling me Penn Densham. Wow, Penn Densham co-wrote Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. What? I'm reeling, Matt. That sneeze was me reeling. Also, that's added Patreon gold. Right. The Audible will not, the audio version of this show will not include the sneeze.
Right.
The video, you think I'm going in and editing out the sneeze? You've got another thing coming. Who can be bothered to edit out the sneeze? Penn Densham fucking co-wrote Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves?
The story and the screenplay. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, good for you, Den Pensham. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Maybe you didn't fail downwards or upwards. Maybe you, maybe you were the Densham we wanted all along. Although I will point out that you did Backdraft, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Well done. Blown Away. Good.
Yeah.
Tank Girl. Interesting choice. I'm not going to knock Tank Girl. It's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
It's good. And then immediately down into the abyss of TV movies, such as the Houdini story, and the Dangerous Lives of Altar Boys, whatever the hell that is.
I think that one was kind of a big deal. I think that was Kieran Culkin, I think, was Dangerous, and I think it might have also had Dangerous Lives of Altar Boys. I think that was what was that 2002? That was like that last gasp, like Secretary, that last gasp of 90s indie. But at that time there wasn't as much of it out there, so it was like Entertainment Weekly just loved, Dangerous Lives of Altar Boys, that kind of stuff. But so that one's kind of a bigger one. But I saw he also did a after he did Tank Girl, he was a producer on an adaptation of Daniel Defoe's Moll Flanders.
He was, yes, and directed it, I think.
Yeah, so he, I guess you go from Tank Girl to,
Moll Flanders. Isn't Moll Flanders about a prostitute?
I believe so. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah.
My favorite thing. This is my favorite thing about Penn Densham, is that he has 2 pictures on IMDb, as far as I can figure. Yeah. He has his latest headshot, which is him proving that he can still bend his knees pretty low, wearing what looks like the cheapest looking, richest sports jacket ever. Right. So in other words, you know that it's expensive because he's Penn Densham, fucking producer of Moll Flanders. He's got the odd coin there, Matt. He's not wearing any off-the-peg JCPenney suit. But it looks like an off-the-peg JCPenney suit because British people, when they get a bit of money, Matt, they don't know what to do with it. They go to Marks and Spencer's, which is sort of like the Banana Republic, sort of. Well, not really. No. What's an old kind of? What is sort of pitched a little older, like an Ann Taylor Loft meets Banana Republic type thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, what would you go? I think in America it probably would be like more like a local thing. Like here in Philly, I think it would be Boyd's. I think it would be like a local, like you'd have your local version, because I think the chains would have the cheap suits, like
Right.
Macy's and all those. I'm trying to think of like one that would be like a chain. I mean, I guess like Bloomingdale's,
Saks Fifth Avenue,
Saks Fifth, yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
So it looks like he's bought it off the peg at Saks Fifth Avenue, but it's probably like an expensive jacket.
Right.
The shirt, I don't even know what's happening with the shirt.
Yeah.
The shirt is sort of a nightclub shirt.
Right.
If you were going to a nightclub in like 1998,
Right.
and again were suspiciously old to be in the nightclub. That's what the shirt looks like. Either that, or it looks like a Wall Street rapist out on the prowl shirt. And then the jeans look like these sort of Walmart, like those look like the kind of stretchy Walmart shiny jeans.
Yeah, dad jeans, right?
When jeans are shiny, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When there's a sheen on them and you're like, I don't know why they've done that.
Yeah.
Where they've taken the denim and they've oiled it up.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a Spader conspiracy. I don't know. But.
When the weather gets warmer, colder here in Philadelphia, like probably around the fall, you don't know how many dads wear jeans like those when they're like touring Old City here in Philadelphia. It's like, I mean, you probably if you
bunch of pendentiums, a lot of them.
Oh, if you took a picture of like the line for the Liberty Bell in late October, it would just be pendentium. Every fifth person would be pendentium.
Oh, Matt, that is a delight. Oh, Matt, the image of that is a delight. Look at the line for the Liberty. Look at the line for the Liberty Bell. Look at them there. Every fifth one a pendentium. So, this is the other thing I love. So he's got that photo, Matt, the one where you look at it and you're like, what is going on with pendentium? But then the only other photo he has is of himself with Julian Adams, Todd Robinson, and John Watson, who also co-wrote Prince of Thieves with pendentium, at the Phantom premiere. So at the Billy Zane superhero movie that never became a franchise. And it's one of those pictures where it looks like me and my friends got dressed up to go to the film and we were the only people there in jackets. It looks like that kind of photo where they're all sort of taking the piss out of Julian Adams for wearing a bow tie. And they're like, oh, look, Jules showed up with a fucking bow tie. Well done, Jules. Congrats. Oh, you've won the night, sir. Look at the tie pendentium's wearing. Some sort of ghostly Chagall unicorn fucking thing. I don't know what's going on with that, but it's freaking the shit out of me. Pendentium, even back then at the Phantom premiere, trying to convince people that's his real hair color. Penn, you're fooling nobody. Look at who you're hanging out with. Look at it. Look at these three people. And you think you're fooling anyone with your Prince of Thieves hair, you mad bastard.
Yeah, and it is, I mean, the dentium, and I mean, the tie, like you said, it is just, I mean...
Pendentium sounds like a character I would make up for the after-movie diary.
Right, exactly. I could see that character, like the sketch, right? Like where it's like almost like pendentium's coming looking for hair coloring products, right? Hello, I'm pendentium. I'm looking for
pendentium. Why are you announcing your full name? Well, because I'm pendentium. And if you're just called Penn, hi, I'm Penn. People are like, what do you mean you're Penn? Like if someone came in and went, hello, I'm Penn, I'd go, I'm Lamp, or I'm Post-it Note, or I'm Stapler. Hello, I'm Stapler. Pleased to meet you, Penn.
Pencil.
No, really, my first name is Penn. I am Pendentium. Who the fuck is... I wrote Prince of Thieves. You didn't write Prince of Thieves. Look, this guy, Alan, come out here. This guy's claiming to have written Prince of Thieves. Says his name's Penn. What? Penn? Says he wrote Prince of Thieves and his name is Penn? Oh, he's having you on. Yeah, I think you're having me on, mate. You're going to have to leave the store. But I am Pendentium, honestly. And then he gets dragged. Security.
Right. He's like trying to pull up on his phone the IMDb. Let me just show you my IMDb page.
Look at me with Julian Adams, Todd Robinson, and John Watson at the Phantom premiere.
Oh, that looks like it's been photoshopped there. I don't get it.
Yeah. They're like, wait, is that movie with Billy Zane? Yeah. Get out, mate. Sling your hook. You're out of here. And then it comes to David Muir. Pendentium was escorted again by security. David, why are you telling us this story? It's a human interest piece. I think you overestimate how much interest we have in Pendentium. But he directed this movie, and I have to say, while he is not exactly a budding John Carpenter, he gives it the good old college try.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? Is that, he's kind of hired gun-ish in here, but
yes.
he puts the aplomb on it.
He puts the Dentium quality.
Right.
That's what he does. He really gives us the Dentium in a way that we hadn't seen before, and good for him. This was written by the screenwriting duo Stephen Volk and Tom Rapalowski or something.
Yep, Rapalowski.
Rapalowski. And he wrote and made his feature directorial debut with the Orion Pictures comedy Madhouse, starring John Larroquette and Christy Alley. The one that you saw on every single VHS you ever rented, but you never rented Madhouse. What was it you never rented? You never rented Madhouse. How many times did you see the trailer? Every time you rented a VHS. But they wrote Ken Russell's Gothic. I mean, if you want to talk about an absolute slide from happy filmmaking heights to depths of despair, you've got Gothic, Ken Russell, a well-known Ken Russell weirdo horror masterpiece. The Kiss, which I will give high marks to. The Guardian, which was made by William Friedkin.
Oh, yes.
And we currently have on VHS in Be Kind Movie Vault in New Milford, 20 Bank Street, lower level of the Hunt. They then write Ghostwatch, which becomes notorious for scaring the bejesus out of the entirety of Great Britain when they do that sort of it's a live broadcast. And this is this is how you know that the David Muirs of the world are just completely fake. Is that with very little effort, because we were all already sucked into the way newsreaders speak and the way they tell us what, and the way that we're sort of educated in sort of how these people speak. There's 2020 is the worst. Everyone on 2020 talks like this. And you're like, nobody's cadence in the real world is like that. And he goes, she went into the shop, but she didn't know what she would find. And it's meant to be like a talking head, it's like, Jeremy full of shit, whatever, producer of this show, we paid him money or whatever. And it's just a talking head. And he just sits there and he'll be like, of course, it was very sad that the sister died. But did it lead us to the closest bit of evidence that we had yet? And you're like, nobody... You were asked an honest question, like what happened with the killer's, sister or whatever. And he goes, the murdering of the sister. And you're like, nobody talks like that. But we've been so conditioned by that when you do something like Ghostwatch, where well-respected people such as and you have to understand that Michael Parkinson is sort of the Johnny Carson of England, except not funny. Oh no, he's more like the Cavett show, but not
Dick Cavett.
Dick Cavett was very, very funny, but Michael Parkinson was always just a journalist, but he had a very Dick Cavett-like show. Even though obviously Dick Cavett could be humorous, Michael Parkinson would often have like big heavy hitters, both of Hollywood and of politics and of everything of the day. That was sort of Parky was sort of our Cavett in that way. And then Sarah Green and Mike Smith were sort of daytime TV and early evening kids TV as well, I think, players. Sort of a bit like the woman on... Anyone from This Morning on ABC or whatever, or the Today Show or whatever. Any of those
Good Morning
kind of
America,
people, those kind of people. So they were people that you had trusted coming into your home for years and years and years. And then they did the show where there was a so-called live broadcast on Halloween night where a BBC team investigated a so-called poltergeist in a London home. And of course, it was all faked. It was written by Stephen Volk and directed by Leslie Manning. But people believed it was real, the way they did it. And that's what I mean. If you can get three so-called journalists / TV presenters who are meant to be telling the truth, if you can get them to lie so successfully that the entirety of Great Britain believes that there's legitimately a fucking poltergeist going nuts in a London home right now, that tells you all you need to know about newscasters and the likes of the David Muirs of the world. Then we've got Tom Ropolowski, or Ropolowski, however you're going to pronounce it. And boy, he produced Loverboy with McSteamy, or whatever his name is, or McDreamy. Right,
the Patrick Dempsey with
Jackson,
Robert Ginty.
Yeah,
Robert Ginty's in that one.
That one. He wrote Blind Date, the Bruce Willis movie.
Was that Blake Edwards that directed that?
I believe so. He wrote the TV series Simon and Simon. He wrote The Kiss, obviously. He wrote Loverboy. He wrote Madhouse. He wrote Look Who's Talking Now. He was such a fan of Kirstie Alley, he went back for another dip in the Alley pool, possibly just before she went crazy. And then again, from then on, nothing much else. So they've all reached their moments in Hollywood, just not hung around a bit. I guess that sort of typifies everyone in the movie. Joanna, Pacula, Meredith, Salenger, everyone except Sean Levy. Sean Levy has really gone from strength to strength, or Levy. Sean Levy. Levy. Let's call the whole thing off. But yes, Sean Levy is by far the most successful person in the movie. Penn Densham, on hearing this, has just gone into his back garden, fallen over, and started crying.
His dad jeans are just covered in like the soil and in the coat, right?
But no, we have to wrap it up by talking about the finale, in which Penn Densham seems to believe fire and water can cohabitate quite happily. Is that a thing, Matt? Scientifically speaking,
I guess if there's enough chemicals in the pool,
right? Or enough oil, I guess.
Right, because it didn't seem like the pool had that many chemicals, because Meredith Salenger was swimming around all the time.
Pacula was in it, and I think Mimi Kazik.
Yeah, she
wasn't she in it? Or was it Sabrina Bud? No, Sabrina Budot was who got mangled in the escalator, I think, right?
Escalate, yeah. But so it was like, not only did you have like the pool, right, with the fire in the pool, but then you have this tank from the grill that falls over.
Yes.
And it's like spitting out fire. It looks like something out of a Duran Duran video from the 80s. It's like you see like these extras maybe walking around with like paint down bodies, and here's like this tank spitting, while Simon Le Bon's singing and Nick Rhodes is playing the keyboard.
And there must be some way to do it. There must be, because there's also a music video, I think, referencing that. If you've ever heard of the British comedy group Not the 9 O'Clock News, which was Mel Smith, Griff Rhys-Jones, Rowan Atkinson, who'd go on to become Mr. Bean, and amongst other characters, Blackadder and so on, and a few other people, Pamela Stevenson, who would go on to marry Billy Connolly. And they did a song called Nice Video, Shame About the Song. And in that, you see, it was a play on the MTV kind of for early, not MTV so much, but the early music video craze in the early 80s, and it had Griff Rhys-Jones walking through a swimming pool like this, but there was like little fiery things in the pool. So there must be some way to do it with gasoline or something, I don't know. Yeah. So we're assuming it's possible, Matt. Anyway.
I was going to say Wild Boys. I think Simon Le Bon almost died in the Wild Boys video, because I think when he was on that fan that was like going into the water, I guess it got stuck, and his head was stuck under the water. And so it was like, it was Russell Mulcahy,
Yes, Mulcahy is a classic director. I absolutely love his Razorback. That's my favorite.
Yeah, and his music videos at that time, he was.
He was a nutcase, absolutely. Yeah. Well, he comes from Australia, and Australia is just used to throwing Grant Page off a million-story cliff, and Grant Page just gets out of the water and goes, "All right, shall we go again, mate?" And they're like, well, next time, Grant Page, we're going to have you drive off a cliff while on fire on a motorbike into a wall and then land in a shark's mouth. All right, mate. All right, I'll go get my fire retardant jacket on. Don't worry about it, mate. I'll be all good. Grant, do you think you want to like shave off the beard and the mad curly hair just in case they set like, no, I'll be fine, mate. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. Grant Page, legend. If you don't know Grant Page, look him up. Especially in Brian Trenchard Smith's documentary / feature films, Death Cheaters and Stunt Rock.
Yeah, I Yeah, I've got to see that. I got to see more Brian Trenchard Smith. I think what was it Siege of Fire Base Gloria? I think that was
Wings.
Wings.
Then you've got Day of the Panther and Day of the Panther 2, which are his sort of straight-to-video 80s, 90s action films. But then before that, you also have the fantastic Escape 2000, which is also known as Turkey Shoot. So you have that one, which is sort of a hunting people who have escaped from prison movie, where for no reason whatsoever, it is set in the future, but for no reason whatsoever, there's a werewolf wearing a top hat. Don't ask, it just is part of the future. In the same way that when you watch a trauma film, you're like, why do these people have pig faces? They just do. They have pig faces. It's a trauma film. Brian Trenchard Smith was like, I want a werewolf wearing a top hat, and I'm going to get that, so away we go. But that is the fantastic Turkey Shoot. I would also strongly recommend Man from Hong Kong with George Lazenby as the big bad villain in that movie. And much like Henriksen at the end of Hard Target that we were talking about on your show, Matt, a fantastic, fantastic show that we did on Jean-Claude Van Damme's Desert Heat, also known as Coyote Man. Much like Lance Henriksen at the end of Hard Target, George Lazenby sets himself on fire for realsies at the end of Man from Hong Kong. So it's well worth watching, Matt.
Yeah, I enjoyed Siege of Fire Base Glory, and I've always kind of known his stuff out there. I think you interviewed him on
3 times.
On the text. Yeah, so I
Drive
listening to his
Angry.
interviews.
You must have covered Drive Angry. That's what it is. The Cusack Tom Jane movie.
Yes, that's right. Yes, okay, that's one I've done. Yeah. Or I don't know if I've reviewed it, but I definitely have seen it. I don't know if I remember the movie. So
everyone comes to Trenchard Smith eventually, especially if you have fallen down the B movie rabbit hole like Thomas Jane and John Cusack have done.
Right. Yes.
I think Tom Jane's enjoying himself, and then John Cusack hates himself deeply. But we'll see.
Yes, he just sends drunken tweets that are like filled with typos, whereas Thomas Jane's like, hey, yeah.
I literally told John Cusack once when the Cubs were winning the World Series, like, isn't this fantastic that the Cubs are finally winning the World Series? And he blocked me on Twitter. And that's all I said. I said, isn't it fantastic that the Cubs are winning the World Series? And he was just like,
he blocked.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, John. What did I do?
My hunch is that people were actually trolling him, and he just didn't know what he was doing. Because I just get this sense that he doesn't understand how any of it works, and he's blocked.
He's there on his phone being like, just make Joey Ramone play music on my phone. How do I get the Ramones? Play the Ramones, or Depeche Mode, or some other moody 80s emo band.
I want to say, I don't know if it was Cusack or Bill Murray, it may have even been both of them, that when the White Sox were winning the World Series in 2005, they wanted seats to the games. And the White Sox were like, no, you buy them like everybody else. We're not giving you your Cubs fans. We don't. So, it might have been Cusack, which it sounds very Cusackian.
Yeah, and then he'd go on Instagram and be like, why is it that the White Sox organization secretly supports Israel or something? You're like,
right.
I don't know what you're going on about, Cusack, you mad bastard. But block me for saying, way to go Cubs, you weirdo. But anyway, the final act of this movie in the swimming pool, quite a staggeringly exciting denouement. We've got rubbery special effect demon worms. We've got fire in the swimming pool. We've got crazy music. We've got lightning. We've got all sorts of stunts happening. It's phenomenal, right, Matt? What an ending to the movie.
What was it? Was that Elmer from Brain Damage? I don't know who that was. That came out of her mouth. That was like, or was like she was like spitting. It was like it was coming out of her mouth. The big like slug.
It was
thing.
It was like Night of the Creeps, except imagine that the slug was like 8 times bigger.
Right. It's like, and she's like trying to get do this, and then it's like,
well, she wants it to enter Salenger. She's trying to penetrate Salenger with her doom slug. And Salenger's having none of it. They're trying to do this in a burning swimming pool.
Right, because there's some idea, I guess, right, that the doom slug likes to go through lineage, like some kind of lineage kind of thing. Yeah,
they have to be related.
Which made no sense because it originated in Africa, And so it's like there weren't Belgians in Africa all the time. That's kind of a relatively recent phenomenon.
Yeah.
So they must have gone from people that weren't related to them at some point. But, I wasn't going to question it too much, considering that I was watching a scene at the end where, there's fire in a pool.
Yeah, except that we're all meant to be related way back through Africa.
Well, that's a good point. Mitochondrial DNA. That's probably how the thing, it connects. Yeah, right.
That's how it works. That's how they figured it out. It's a filthy sex slug looking to impregnate prone young teens, and it comes through the mitochondrial gene. So that's what it is.
Yep.
Penn Densham would have explained it if we'd been able to get him on the show. But next week, Penn Densham is on the show. I'm going to reach out to him and be like, Penn, talk to me about the kiss, buddy. Come on, tell me all about it.
Yeah. Oh, my God, Penn Densham. I can just imagine Penn Densham, like, you try to get him on the show, and first off, it's like the Skype thing, like just logging on. You get the message from him. I'm not able to get the microphone to work. And it's like, go into Skype, and then you've got to try to walk him through Skype and the settings and all of that. He's like, oh, okay, all right, here we go.
He thinks he's looking in a mirror, so he starts putting dye on his eyebrows with a tiny little brush.
Right, exactly.
He thinks he's not on camera. He's like, don't mind me. Right. What are you doing there, Penn? You're applying more hair dye to your eyebrows. I don't. This is all natural Densham. Top to bottom, pure dench. So anyway, I gave the kiss. Well, let's find out. Let's find out what I said about the kiss. Because it was, I think, the last movie I reviewed. Because I haven't really been watching very many movies lately, to be honest. I've been working a bit too hard. But let's just see what we did. I don't know what you gave it, but I gave it 4 stars, Matt. I was apparently
you gave it 4. So I don't use I haven't been doing stars on Letterboxd, which is kind of rude because I always look at what other people are putting for stars and kind of get a sense of how people are feeling about a movie. But yeah, I probably would have been 3 on this. This was it would have been 2 for kind of the early part of it, but then it kind of grew into a nice 3 for me.
My feeling on it is this: is that 98% of the time when you dip into a VHS you've heard nothing about, especially a VHS that stars people you have heard of.
Right.
And especially a VHS in the horror genre like this is. Very often when you put that in, even if you've heard of it, even if it's something like Offerings, which I had heard of or whatever, you put it in and by the end of it you're like, I see why that is not Halloween or Friday the 13th or Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Evil Dead or whatever. I understand why those ones rose to the top and this one languished in obscurity. The Kiss is one where I'm like, considering some of the fucking junk that some of the Blu-ray companies have put out, I'm actually really staggeringly surprised that The Kiss has not been either given an Arrow or Vinegar Syndrome or Scream Factory release. Because, and it feels very much like a bit of a lost gem. And the fact that 12 of my friends on Letterboxd have all given it over 3 and most have given it 4 or 4.5 stars even, I think it feels that way to us because we watch so many horror movies that we either have heard about but have never seen, or have never seen but Scream Factory puts it out and you go, all right, I'll watch it. And then you end up being a little disappointed. To watch something like this, know nothing about it other than Meredith Salenger was in it, and to end it and be like, whoa, there was mad practical effects, there was horror, there was pools on fire, there was bloodletting, there was screaming, there was mad lightning, there was weird cult rituals, there was sex scenes, there was, people being sliced up. There was people being hit by cars. There was people being hung, right? Didn't someone get hung?
I think so. Yeah.
And so you just sort of go, this is great. And my review was, films like this are the reason I love to collect VHS. Before this showed up in a box of other randoms, I had never heard of it, but it had Meredith Salenger in it, and so that was good enough for me. Well, I love the hell out of it. It has superb, gory, gooey, and mad practical effects. It has bloody, graphic, and bizarre death scenes. A fun, simple, predictable, but enjoyable story. Wild sex scenes juxtaposed with mental horror and plenty of inventive set pieces. Yeah, the sex scene cutting back and forth between what it cuts back and forth with, that was pretty pretty interesting and spectacular.
Oh, right. That's the scene when she's in bio class.
Yes, she's in bio class and she's having all sorts of like insane, weird visions, and like her nose is bleeding and stuff.
Right, and she's menstruating, and it's like all kinds of while they're having sex. Yeah, and there's like
she starts menstruating for the first time.
Yeah, it's completely. You're right. It's bonkers. It's Pendentium at his Pendentiumness.
Yes, it's really one of Penn's fortes to juxtapose a woman's first rite of passage with a writhing silk bedded sex scene with Joanna Pachyderm or whatever her name is. Joanna Pacula. Joanna Pacula.
Joanna Scott Pacula.
It wouldn't be surprising if she was really like a bride of Dracula, because that's how she plays everything. She plays everything very vampy. Anyway, I said it's not got the best cinematography, although I feel like the VHS version and even the one that was on YouTube or whatever I shared with you that you ended up watching, which are not great versions out there. I feel like if this was cleaned up and put on a decent screen, it might look a bit better. But it's not got the best cinematography, and the bloke that played the dad, Nicholas Kilbertus, he is fucking awful. He isn't that compelling, and they both fall flat. In fact, if it wasn't for the horror, you might think this was a TV movie or something. But Salenger and a pre-director of the biggest movie in the world, Sean Levy, Joanna Pacula, and Mimi Kuzik are all suitably 80s, over the top, and delicious. I would have loved to have seen a pass at this subject matter for a female writer and director. Yeah, we didn't talk about this either. I feel like this subject matter is incredibly feminine, especially as we just talked about the evil stepmother sexually attacking the husband while the girl at school is all alone as she gets her first period. I feel like Pendentium did a great stab at it, and I think that the feminist themes in the movie do ring out. But I would have loved to have seen a pass at the subject matter for a female writer and director. But considering the boys' club behind the scenes, it is a pretty feminist horror movie. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with all of it. I think I think Joe Bob did this for one of his last drive-ins or something like that. So it's got
not one of the last, not the Shudder one he did.
Oh no, so it was before that.
Probably
He was
Monster
before
Vision or one of those.
Yes, it was something that he either covered it or something. Yes, maybe it wasn't last year. It was something before that. But yeah. So he has that sort of connection to it. It's bonkers enough that like you said, it sort of elevates it beyond the sort of unremarkable.
Yeah.
And I think when you're looking for a late 80s or looking for an 80s horror movie, it needs a bonkers quality, because it's either like there's much more unremarkable than there is like fantastic.
Right.
And so you're better off doing bonkers, because then you've got something if it's bonkers.
Well, I just loved it that this felt like a real discovery. And it didn't feel like a real... try and explain. It didn't feel like a real discovery like Desert Heat felt like a real...
Right.
Desert Heat felt like a real discovery, but it's not one that I would go out to anyone else and be like, this is a fantastic movie. It's a fantastic movie for me, and I know all the reasons why I love it. This, on the other hand, is one that I want to say to horror fans, like two people who watch everything from, full moon features to big Universal horror stuff and Paramount and whatever. Whether you watch studio horror movies, whether you watch B horror movies, whether you watch Craven and Cronenberg and Raimi and all those guys, if you like horror, big, small, or indifferent, The Kiss to me feels like one that I want to say to the world, like, what do you mean you haven't seen The Kiss? Fucking watch The Kiss.
Yeah.
Because while it has a lot of Lifetime movie trappings, the horror is, and the gore and the action and the deaths are compelling in a way that you don't always get when you do a deep dive into VHS-dom and pick out something like The Kiss. I said, I want this to be rediscovered. Honestly, while I couldn't call it exceptional exactly, it is so much better than so many of the other movies that people herald as classics from the same era. So it's at least 4 stars for me, and if Arrow, Scream Factory, or Vinegar Syndrome releases tomorrow, it would be an instant pre-order buy. Find it, watch it, and tell your friends. And I genuinely mean that. It's like there are people who will tell you that certain slasher films, especially sort of the middle of the road low-rent slasher films are fucking amazing. Now, I'm a slasher film fanatic. I watch slasher films all the time. Most of them are not amazing. And I don't even mean that in an ironic sense. They're just, a lot of them you watch and you go, okay, you know what I mean? Like, all right. But there are some that people will proselytize about and think are the best films ever, while the kiss lingers in obscurity, and I don't want it to anymore. Was there anything else from your review on Letterboxd that you wanted to bring up, sir? Any other talking points about this?
No, I mean, the only other thing, I guess, now when you're talking about this potential like Arrow, Vinegar Syndrome, Blu-ray version, if we're going to do that, I've got to get Pendentium commentary.
Yes.
I need a Pendentium commentary.
Oh, 100%. And I think that we should moderate the Pendentium, because at least the first 25 minutes of a Pendentium commentary is us trying to explain to him how to turn his mic on.
Right, exactly. Yes.
Or how to see the movie. Like maybe Pendentium is looking at us through the window and the movie's behind him. And we keep just like frantically waving at him. And he's like, these guys are really enjoying the film. These guys seem to really love the film. You should see them from the booth, waving, chatting. However, the film hasn't started yet. So if someone could tell me when the film starts, I'm meant to be doing a commentary. We're like, it's on, behind you. Turn around, Densham. And he's like, they are waving, they're whooping, they're hollering. He can't hear anything. The whole commentary is just him confused until you hear me burst into the booth and go, it's behind you, Densham, you twazzick. Yeah. I've killed Matt, ladies and gentlemen.
The laugh killed me there. Let's see.
They seem to really like the film. It's behind you, Densham. And he turns around and just in time for like the middle of the movie and the rest of the movie, he's... I wish I could see those guys again. I really miss those guys. I wish they were in here with me. I just come through his earpiece. Densham, shut up and talk about the film. People want to know what you were doing up in Canada with Meredith Salenger in 1987 or whatever you shot this thing. Leonard Moulton gave this a decent enough review for a horror movie, which he usually slams. He said it builds up to and then backs away from the lesbian and incestuous implications of its premise. Moulton has a point. The movie may have been more shocking and devastating if it went full throttle in this direction, much like Paul Schrader's Cat People or Edgar Allan Poe's Fall of the House of Usher. I love that the fact that the person writing this trivia point has gone off the trivia at this point.
Right.
The trivia, and again, Matt, I hasten to call it trivia.
Right.
It's just Leonard Moulton went, well, lesbians, right? Didn't really do it for me.
Right.
And then the rest of the trivia point is just whoever wrote it editorializing.
Right.
Just, well, maybe if it had gone... Maybe, Matt, this is what they're saying. Maybe if it had gone full lesbo, aunt to niece, slinkfest. Basically what Leonard Moulton is in a classy way saying, they really should have explored the themes of, the female as part of the family and the sexual dynamics between women and blah, 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 blah. Like Moulton's trying to say that, right? This guy, though, who's editorializing is being like, look, they should have had Pacula and Salenger scissoring for all they were worth, is what this guy's... Well, if they went the way of Paul Schrader's Cat People, you mean hire a really foxy actress and have her bone her brother? Yeah, they should have done that. It's basically people being like, I don't know how to Google incest porn, so I want every movie that I watch. What if this guy's gone from movie to movie on IMDb and all the trivia is just him editorializing about incestual lesbianic relationships? I'm just going, I would have liked The Devil Wears Prada, but I would have liked it much more if Emily Blunt and Anne Hathaway went at it for 2.5 hours while Meryl Streep watched wearing a mask. Yeah, we all would have preferred that, but it doesn't mean...
It's not trivia.
It's not trivia.
That's like whenever I will watch a Marvel movie, I want to look at the trivia on IMDb, and there'll be 270 pieces of trivia, and more than half of it isn't trivia. It's just well, this person was in this TV show. It's 3 years later, this other person did that TV show. And it's like, that's not trivia.
Yeah.
What does that have to do with the making of the movie or an Easter egg in the movie?
It's people who miss the IMDb forums. That's
right.
what it is.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
This is fantastic. And then this is the sort of trivia that's written by just an incredible nerdy pedant, right? Jack is about to board an aircraft, a British HS-125. The registration seen under the wing is CF-SIM. However, Canadian registration prefixes switched from CF to a C starting in 1974. By 1988, it would be highly unlikely for this aircraft still to be carrying a CF star registration. It should be C-FSIM by 1988. Presumably, the aircraft had been sitting around out of use and thus for change to its apparent registration. I don't know what that last sentence means, but this guy needs to get
Somebody
out.
gave it the thumbs down. I saw like the helpful.
Yeah, was it helpful? Yeah. No. This isn't helpful in any way at all. It's helpful to know who needs psychiatric treatment and who doesn't. And anyone being like, with a prefix on a Canadian aircraft by 1988. Oh, it hurts so much to be you. And another thing, guns only hold 6 bullets. She clearly fired 8. He's like the Neil deGrasse Tyson of annoying facts. Because you know in Neil deGrasse Tyson, like, there'll be a time travel movie, and he goes, well, of course, if time travel was real, it wouldn't be possible for you to be able to go back and see yourself in the past, Marty. Like, what are you doing? What would actually happen is if you went to the past and you'd be like, shut up, Neil. Stop ruining Back to the Future. It's a movie, and you clearly need to get fucking laid. And another thing, there's no way that Matt Damon would be able to be trapped on Mars. Neil, we've told you before. Shut up. Enough. Well, actually, Oppenheimer was only correct about 4% of the time. Neil, we've told, like, every fucking movie. DeGrasse Tyson, are you actually, like, doing anything to solve space? Or no? What I mean, because you know DeGrasse Tyson's palling around with Musk in that fucking shower when he's not being recorded on the internet, giving me pearls of wisdom about black holes.
Right. Well, we mentioned about him getting laid. Wasn't he somebody who got swept up in the Me Too thing? Didn't he? I think
probably anyone who wears a waistcoat with the stars and moon on it and goes around with that kind of suggestive mustache.
Right.
Probably got wrapped up in the Me Too thing. I mean, if anyone screams Me Too in a way, it's DeGrasse Tyson.
Right.
I'm going to tell you some interesting things about Uranus. No, you're not. No, you're not, Tyson. Step back. Step back. She's of age, but it's still inappropriate.
Right. She's not offering consent. There's no consent here.
Yeah. She might be of age, but no one here is consenting to anything, Tyson. With your sleazy snooker player waistcoats. I don't know if you know this, but snooker players in the UK, much like jockeys in the world of racing, where they're not very interesting people, snooker players. They're pretty dull. And they're like, yeah, coming from the man who does 3-hour podcasts about fucking Meredith Salenger. Yeah, okay. But anyway, they're very dull. And in order to liven them up, they wear like polka dot waistcoats or whatever. And it'll always be like the snooker player who's known for his slightly risque waistcoats. You know what I mean? This one had 8 polka dots on it, and snooker regulations clearly state that no more than 7 polka dots should be seen at any given time on a waistcoat. It's that sort of thing.
Right.
DeGrasse Tyson's waistcoats are like that, and it conjures up images of sleazy pool halls in the middle of the night. And him being like, if I line up these cue balls like the planets. Oh. You're like, I don't know why you get so aroused. Now show me your black hole. Now, Tyson, it's just not appropriate. She's of age. No one's saying there's anything improper happening, but she does not consent to black holes or any of it. Einstein's theory of relativity. I think the theory is that you should sling your hook. DeGrasse Tyson. But he would object to this movie as well on the grounds of, well, when the slug came out of her mouth and tried to orally impregnate Meredith Salenger, in reality, slugs are herbivores, and oh, for fuck's sake. Slugs are actually asexual and don't partake in. Oh my God, Neil deGrasse Tyson needs to die in a
It's
fire.
like the chlorine in the pool would cause the slug to shrivel up, and so it wouldn't have been able to survive in the pool.
Yes. Actually, if the water is on fire, then oh my God. He's the kind of guy, like, you'd never want to get stuck behind Neil deGrasse Tyson in a movie theater.
Right.
Because he's the kind of guy who'd be watching Star Wars, the most fantastical, overblown, ridiculous, not based on science in any way at all film possible. And he'd be like, rubbish, nonsense. It wouldn't happen like that. Nope, lightsabers wouldn't work. How are we telling the laser to only go so far? Lasers go as far as until they hit another object. And you're like, all right, deGrasse Tyson. Anyway, Penn Densham, round of applause for Penn Densham, because he created, I think, a hitherto undiscovered gem. Everyone should go watch it now. Please do. Well, now we've come to the point where I'm pretty much forced to input tons of annoying adverts into this, it's long and rambling, but it's still very enjoyable podcast, right? Anyway, it's not that I mind a company saying, hey, do you need a toilet brush? Well, how about trying our toilet brush? It's very good at being a toilet brush. It comes in lots of colors and it won't ever judge the state of your toilet. I mean, after all, I'm also the one that says, buy my albums and subscribe to Patreon, you fucks. You know, I'm that guy too, so I don't mind that. But the lunatic people they employ to do the teeth-grindingly bad voiceovers, and then the music, and the attempts at comedy, and the millionaire celebrities hawking shit from credit cards, and then the volume of all the adverts, it just drives me apoplectic with rage. Am I the only one that when an insurance company advert comes on the TV, I want to find whoever made it and repeatedly club their budgerigar to death with a biker boot? Is it just me? Is it... Oh, all right then. Look, I can only assume, after all, that adverts are as bad and cretinous as they are because they're actually working on some of you bastards. And that's like the chicken or the egg thing. Are adverts terrible because the worse they made them, the more successful they are? Or have we all just become so oversaturated with everything that adverts have to be the screeching annoyances that they are and rammed down our throats so repeatedly because we're all zombified into a hopeless stupor, and all that can break us out of it is some bleeding man-child and his ostrich yelling about fucking car insurance. Anyway, me, the Aftermovie Diner, and our co-host Matt Perea do not endorse any of the following adverts and think you should probably just fast forward through the lot of them. Thanks. Moving on, sir, to a decade later. Yes. We shoot an entire decade later.
Yes.
To the world of Paul W.S. Anderson and David Webb Peebles. It's spelt Peoples, but I have it under good authority that him and his wife, I believe Janet, who I believe wrote Blade Runner, that they go by Peebles, I believe. Yeah. They also wrote Terry Gilliam movie 12 Monkeys.
That's right. Yeah, because this is supposed to be in the same universe as Blade Runner, which they never advertised. Oh, really? Yeah, it's something that they...
How?
So Peoples said that this was supposed to be like, I guess maybe takes place after Blade Runner, but it's supposed to be the same universe, the same idea. And or the same, I guess that shared world that Blade Runner's in. But they never advertised that at all. Like, it wasn't like, you'd think like nowadays, right? It would have been Soldier, a Blade Runner story or something like that, you know?
Yes.
But they don't mention it at all. The whole ad campaign for this movie when it came out in the 90s never mentioned it once.
Right. And Paul Anderson, as a director known for Mortal Kombat, Event Horizon, which is a fantastic horror movie in space with Sam Neill, Soldier, Resident Evil, Alien vs. Predator, Death Race with Jason Statham, Resident Evil Afterlife, The Three Musketeers, which I haven't seen, Resident Evil Retribution, Pompeii, and then did he do a remake of the Monster Hunter movie?
I think so.
But this had Mia Jovovich in it, Tony Jaa, and Ron Perlman.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, safe to say that I much prefer Paul W.S. Anderson to Paul Thomas Anderson.
Right, yes.
I'm not a Paul Thomas Anderson fan at all.
Yeah.
I find his stuff to be absolute pretentious drivel. Well, didn't he just make that fucking
Licorice pizza? That was him, right?
Yeah, fuck him.
Yeah.
Up and down the wall every day, Monday to Saturday, and 3 times on Sunday.
Right.
With a fucking cattle prod. Fuck Paul Thomas Anderson. That licorice pizza, well, we've been there before. We're not going to go there again. Paul Thomas Anderson, though, I love Event Horizon. Mm-hmm. I liked Resident Evil for what it was. Alien vs. Predator is on my list of things to watch. Death Race. I'm not usually a fan of remakes, but I thought it was a pretty decent attempt. Plus, you still had Roger Corman on as producer. And then the Resident Evil sequels, they're perfectly fine. They're not my overall cup of tea, but I'll give it to him over Paul Thomas Anderson. Although I would love to have seen Paul Thomas Anderson's Soldier. Actually, I wouldn't. It would be
right, I don't...
9 hours long, and
William H. Macy would have been playing the role of Patrick's of Kurt Russell.
He's been cancelled though because his wife tried to pay to have their kid put in, and he was like, "Yeah, my wife did, not me." Right, but what does that say about your relationship, right. William H. Christ. So, Matt, Soldier must be something with its straight-to-video nature and its Kurt Russell starring thing that you must have seen a long time ago.
I never saw it. So,
this is new to the pair of us.
This was new to me as well. So, what happened was I remember when it came out in the theater, and I looked at it and I was like, I have no interest in seeing that movie, and nobody that I knew wanted to see it either. It right. looked ridiculous, and so we're like, okay, we're not going to see it. But I think because it was so... This was R-rated, wasn't it? It was.
Yes.
Yeah, because it was so R-rated, and also because it did so poorly, and it really only has Kurt Russell. The other names are kind of for the 2000s. They eventually become bigger names, but it was never a TNT new classic. So right. It never had that second life that like a Shawshank Redemption had or Fugitive or those kind of movies. So it just kind of died there. It was one of those ones that like we knew it existed, but it was almost like. There's so many other Kurt Russells I'd rather see. And so when you brought it up, I was like, it's one I'd always meant to see. Like I'd always wanted to see just to say I saw it, just to be able to understand that it existed. So when you mentioned it, I was like, okay, I'm really up for seeing this one. Again, at least at the very least be able to say I saw it.
Yeah. And it's funny because I don't know what I was expecting going in, right. Or why it had such the bad reputation that it had. It's not quite up there with, Howard the Duck and Cutthroat Island or whatever, but it was certainly one of those where I think a lot of people pinned a lot of hopes on it, only to have those hopes dashed. Watching it now, with hindsight, sort of many, many years later, it feels a little bit like it got the Escape from LA treatment, meaning that it is clearly an enormously derivative, comic book of a movie that, much like Escape from LA, had a much too large a budget for what it was. Yeah. Escape from LA had like a $50 million budget, which in back then in the 90s was huge. And I imagine that this was equally budgeted, just based on some of the computer effects and other stuff that they had going on in the movie. I don't know exactly what it was budgeted at because they don't really say on IMDb anymore. But
I think they gave it. I think they gave like an estimate. They said $60 million.
Yeah,
and it made like 14.
Right. So it's exactly, and it sort of suffers from Escape from LA, and I think that syndrome, and I think that. With hindsight now, it's a pretty enjoyable romp. It's not perfect by any means, right? And it is derivative as fuck. I mean, first of all, it's extraordinarily derivative of Universal Soldier 1 and 2. I mean, that goes without saying, but it is hugely derivative of those films. But it also cherry picks a 9,000,001 sci-fi tropes that you've seen 1,000 times. And dumps it all in the mix, in the stew, as it is. And I sometimes can't tolerate that, and I sometimes can. I have to say this time, I pretty much tolerated it and quite enjoyed it. It lost me with the ridiculous love montage, which we'll get onto. But how did you feel about sort of the initial movie / premise, Little bit RoboCop, little bit Universal Soldier.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, I think the thing is, it's Kurt Russell in the role. Like, if this, this comes out in '98. Like, if it comes out 5 years later and it's Vin Diesel in the role, it probably takes on a completely different life. Like,
right.
Even with all the flaws that are in it and all the issues that are in all those things, it probably, I don't know that it spawns like 3 sequels, but it possibly, like, it could have been that kind of thing. But right. Kurt Russell, I think, is too, I don't know if to say deep as an actor. Like, he's got too much going for him as an actor that, like, he can take Escape from LA and really play that part and do all the nuance and everything like that. This role doesn't really have a lot of nuance, and I feel like almost like he was looking for the nuance, and that's when you get like some of those things like you talk about, like the love montage and stuff like that. But I agree with you. I think the reason why I had so much disdain for it when it came out was the ad campaign made it look ridiculous. And I think that was the problem, was it just looked so silly because it looked so derivative. It was like, I've seen this 8 million times. I don't want to see it again. But now coming back to it, like you said, I think it's a good, I mean, it's, what is it, like a $1.45? Like, it's not even that long. And so you're kind of in and out really quickly. And it
139.
139, so it's even shorter than that. And a chunk of that is taken up with the credits. So it's like, you kind of move in there kind of quickly. And so I think for like an action movie of that period, especially, Paul W.S. Anderson, I mean, it feels, now that I've seen more of his movies, I've seen the Resident Evils and I've seen all of those, it feels kind of more like one of his movies. Like, I think for people that are watching his movies or, kind of going through his catalog, this isn't one to skip. I think it's definitely one that I think over time, I think now that you've kind of divorced it from the context it was in at the time, it's like you said, it's not the greatest thing ever, but it's, you've got friends over and you got some pizzas and some beers or some, pizza coladas or whatever you might be drinking.
Yes.
Right?
Pizza coladas, definitely.
Right. Whatever anybody's drinking, I think this is a kind of movie that people would, spend time with and relax with and have a fun time with. I think that's the kind of movie. And I think it's what it was supposed to be for people going to the theater and have it be a theater night. It's now more a home theater night kind of movie.
Yeah, it's... How to explain it? I mean, Kurt Russell, as wonderful as he is, in the role, when you see the new soldiers, because at the very beginning of the movie, right, you learn the history of Kurt Russell's soldier character, and you see him as a kid being kind of trained. It's very sort of Black Widow, right? Oh, they were taken out of their junior schools, and in Black Widow are forced to do ballet, because a ballet immediately leads to assassin, apparently. If you're in the Russian ballet, you're also...
John Wick also.
Murdering people. John Wick also, yes. Everyone, Red Sparrow also. Yeah. Everyone's gone through the ballet Russian torture device. So this is essentially sort of the Hitler Youth / Russian ballet torture / America of the future sort of thing, with the children handpicked to become soldiers, right? Or even bred to become soldiers, right?
I think so, yeah.
Genetically enhanced from birth. And, trained and raised and whatever, had the personality, will, and everything kind of beaten out of them. And they are the elite, and they have been raised to be the elite. But then, of course, 35 years in, or however old Russell's meant to be once we sort of see him as an adult, 35 years in, along comes Jason Isaacs. He's got, in the style of RoboCop or whatever, he's got a much better machine, a much better soldier, a much better whatever. And there is this sequence at the beginning, and it's both wonderfully stupid and also weirdly touching. Yeah. And that is when Kurt Russell and this is squared off against this ridiculously enormous 90s muscle-bound 8-foot tall guys. Like, and this is where it doesn't work, is that Kurt Russell, for all his training 3 to 4 hours a day, desperately trying to be Schwarzenegger or whatever, he's never going to be Stallone and Schwarzenegger. It's just, he's not even going to be Van Damme. Like, he's Kurt Russell, we love him, and he's fucking awesome, and he's great. But, like, he's never going to be tall, and he's never going to be, like, super wide. So putting him up against these enormous fucking Maori-looking, muscular the rock kind of Vin Diesel types, it it looks ridiculous. However, it had this wonderful, that sequence at the beginning sort of had that wonderful Pinocchio thing of sort of throwing away the old toy.
Right.
Sort of thing. Or the Toy Story thing of throwing away the old toy. Just sort of that, casting aside the way that Russell plays him, especially when he's sort of dropped to the floor, is sort of like a dead rag doll kind of thing. The dead doll, the dead toy, the dead... And so I think if it wasn't for Paul W.S. Anderson, who I think when it comes to sort of big vistas of CGI garbage spaceships dumping waste out onto an island, I think he knows exactly what he's doing. I actually think those scenes look incredibly charming, almost like early CGI is finally nowadays looking like stop motion used to look to us when we were growing up.
Yeah.
Like it finally has sort of a charm. Early CGI has a charm that current CGI just will never have, kind of thing. And so all those spaceship renderings and big planetary vistas and, you know, large trucks rolling over desert landscapes, you know, and explosions, you know, he's got that covered. But there's a little too whiz-bangery to really get the ragdoll thing. But Russell definitely is playing it like that. He's definitely playing it a little bit operatic, and it certainly made a little operatic.
Yeah. Well, and I think also, too, with the open spaces, apparently they didn't want to shoot this as much on a soundstage with as much CGI, but Russell insisted on working out and getting more in shape for the role, and it pushed production back by like 3 or 4 months. So that like changed the look. But in a way, it's interesting because I think it probably informed Paul W.S. Anderson more on how he wanted his movies to look. Because he takes a lot from this movie. I mean, when you watch the Resident Evils, like you said, you know, those CGI vistas that he creates. I mean, it's almost like, this movie, it may not have turned out the way he wanted it to, but I think it gave him some insight on how to do this stuff later. And he makes those Resident Evil movies what they are.
It certainly sort of is wasting money all over the place. But again, with hindsight, I don't mind that. I like seeing big, epic failures. It's sort of interesting because I heard Bill Burr talking about something the other day when he was saying, like, he was talking about Heaven's Gate, and he was saying, the 70s film brat era really came to an end because when Heaven's Gate came out, it was this massive flop, and everyone said it's the worst film ever.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I started watching it, and he said, if the first 45 minutes are anything to go by, he's like, this is so far from the worst film ever. People have no idea what a bad film is. He was like, it looked amazing. The acting was great, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not going to say that Soldier is necessarily Heaven's Gate, but it's definitely one of those where you've got to, first of all, if this came out in 88, it would be so much more revered than it coming out in 98, right? It's just a little late down. It's a little late to the madness party. If this was like 90 or even 92, you could get away with it being this bonkers. But it's 80s bonkers. Right. So it's late 90s, but it's 80s bonkers.
Well, and this was supposed to come out then. Peoples wrote this when he was writing Blade Runner.
Right.
So he'd been shopping this for years. That probably explains that feel. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But it's and what I mean by 80s bonkers is my favorite kind of movie where you just go, oh, they're just doing whatever they want.
Right.
Like someone just fucking snorted 3 lines of amphetamines and just went, fuck it, we're gonna do this ridiculous, over the top thing. And it was glorious. And it has that in spades. And it certainly, I think where it is done a disservice is you can tell the themes that Peoples is playing with, right? So because what's really lovely at the end of the movie is that Russell wins purely on what they haven't trained the new soldiers on, which is cunning, patience, intelligence, strategy.
Yeah,
like they haven't taught them any of that. They just want these soldiers to just be enormous brutes with massive guns, and that's going to take care of all their problems in a sort of RoboCop type satire. And again, there's so much that's being played with here. There's the Pinocchio story of I want to be a real boy. There's themes of honor and cunning and intelligence and romance. And there's also the idea that is the military ultimately brainwashing a generation of people. There is, fear of technology. There is, then there's sort of sci-fi fantasy ideas of, or even maybe science fiction ideas, but of, garbage planets where we just dump our rubbish for the rest of eternity, which then you see crop up in TV shows like Loki.
Yeah.
There is literally a whole sub-planet in the TV series Loki that is basically the planet that Soldier takes place on. It is right. Both heavily influenced, but I also think a little influential in its own way. Yeah. However, Matt, let us not shortchange the ending of this movie. Sir, let us talk about Kurt Russell basically becoming Commando. Let's talk about that, because that was fucking glorious.
Yeah, it was. I think there was I wasn't sure how they were going to go with this,
right?
And I think, like you said, the way that they decided to go with it, where it's that and I think all those traits you were talking about, right? That Kurt Russell's old model has that they don't have. The other one was the field experience piece, right? That he's
right.
35 years of being out, and so he's used to battles, he's used to fighting and everything.
Well, it's the tortoise and the hare, right?
Right. Yeah. And it's one of the things when I just recently watched Superman 2, and I wish they had done more of that, where like Superman is used to using his powers for 13 years, and then Zod and company they're new to them, and that's their disadvantage. This movie does that perfectly. So it's like you've got the story part of it where it kind of makes sense, where he's like, how is he going to fight all of these guys at once? Okay, he's going to put the odds in his favor, do all of these things. But then the payoff with each kill is just so fit. Like Anderson doesn't shortchange us on this ending here, no. and we get the money's worth there. And I think that is an area where I think I wish this movie had. Yeah, I wish it had gotten a better reception.
What this movie was lacking. Yeah. This movie was lacking Brian James.
Yes.
That's what this movie was lacking. This movie had a Brian James hole in it.
Yes.
Because why is Brian, you've got Gary Busey. First of all, you've gone full-blown 80s henchman over the hill, though, by this point.
Right,
over the hill.
Right.
Over the hill, 80s henchman, possibly would-be action star of his own, but never quite made it. Gary Busey. In the movie, and what a pleasure he is. But then you've got sort of the thin moustache twirling villain of Jason Isaacs, which I'm not a fan of at all.
Right. And he does so many things at this time too. He's like, it's interesting to see him juxtaposed with Busey, because Isaacs represents kind of the newer movies. Like he was just in everything as this character from like 1995 on, whereas Busey was pre-95. Like he's, Predator 2, he sees our heat, he's Lethal Weapon, all of those kinds of things. So it's almost even there we're getting like the old and the new model. But Busey, like you said, like Busey brings like this Busey quality to it that just is, it's fantastic.
But it needs a Brian James.
Yeah.
It needs the third, to quote the Ginty movie, it needs a third type of heat.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And I'm missing Brian James in this.
Yeah,
with the because Army. I think if you had James and Busey gang up on Isaacs, because the trouble is this movie makes Isaacs the big bad. It's like everyone else is going to die and Isaacs. Well, Isaacs is a simpering, whimpering, corporate stooge with a Dick Dastardly mustache.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's not interesting. Kurt Russell will fart and kill him. Like he's not. Yes. Unless Kurt Russell is going to tie him limb upon limb to 4 trucks and then have them all drive apart at equal speed, that I would watch.
Right.
But in general, you want to see Busey and Brian James go up against Russell. That's who you want to see, with fire exploding behind him and rain lashing down and little sparkles of fire and flame. I mean, the end of this movie is just gorgeous, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, fire and dust and
I mean, the Brian James you're describing, I see like a beret with his army uniform. Yeah, and he's like just like like I don't know what Busey's rank was, but he'd be like one rank below Busey, and the two of them are just like, and they're figuring out what to do with this Isaacs guy, and they're sort of biding their time, before they, I mean, maybe a whip or a riding crop too with Brian James. I don't know.
Yes, like a hollow whip or some sort of made up futuristic gubbins. And maybe he's just called Whip, because Gary Busey is just called Church.
Right.
I mean, at least Jason Isaacs gets a rank. He's Colonel Meekum.
Right.
So I think you could have Church and Whip. And Gary Busey's going to take you to church. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, because the Busey one, he's like the most interesting. Like you said, Isaac is so one note, but also we've just seen his one note so many times, like it's so many places.
Yeah, put your note away, Isaac.
Right, exactly. Right. I mean, there are other characters too. I mean, poor Sean Pertwee.
So
he's
Sean
also
Pertwee is sort of being used in this movie a bit like Neil Marshall would use him. Because Sean Pertwee kind of has two roles. He either shows up in genre fare like this, or he turns up in sort of indie geezer movies. But I love him. He's one of my I love Sean Pertwee. He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, same.
And what I we can't bring up Pertwee without talking about the worst love triangle.
Well, because it made no sense that why couldn't Pertwee just be married to somebody else? And she totally, I can't believe I'm drawing blanks. Connie Nielsen. Yeah. She could have been the sister of. She could be Pertwee's sister or sister-in-law, so that there wouldn't have been any need for a love triangle thing. That to have to kill Pertwee off, because that's what they have to having to do to make because you can't have him cheating on our hero can't be a cheat, right? He can't be a philanderer.
But what it means is that he is more or less honorable to his best friend. More or less. And I say more or less because essentially there is a Enya, what sounds like someone strangling Enya scored love montage that in no uncertain terms is like the Wayne's World Dreamweaver scene with Dan Aykroyd's wife, or the Heather Locklear, Heather B. It's that sort of, you expect them to start exaggeratingly licking the lips or rubbing their nipples against the glass in some kind of Jim Carrey type way. You really expect, all the while in the background, it's all like Enya being drowned by dolphins.
They found these session singers in LA, and they said sound like Lorena McKennitt. It's okay, all right, I'll do my best, Lorena. It's but it also had this drum and bass thing in the background to it.
Yeah. Well, because there was a whole sort of, it was set in space, but what people love to do is be like, but what if it's the past but in space? Mm-hmm. So because they'd all been dumped here on this garbage planet, this trash planet, they had to build these encampments themselves. And so that it gives the set set dresser much in the way that it would on Stargate or whatever. It'd be like, oh great, I can use all this leftover Egyptian and African mumbo jumbo and just sort of throw it into a pot and be like, well, they're all just wearing the rags of the past, and they're sheltering under flags and tarpaulin and various weird things that can blow in the wind and stuff. I think it probably had the same set dresser as Desert Heat Inferno, probably, because they just like fabric, wind, and various a sense of sort of mysticism without any actual belief structure. You know what I mean? Just a vague sense that someone somewhere probably believes in a sun god or something. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's just such a weird you're right. It's like you have the weird. This is Paul W.S. Anderson, right? He could do this really fantastic end.
Yeah, this isn't Penn Densham.
Right. Penn Densham can probably transition us for both, right? He could do. Yeah. Well, Penn Densham would have been like, no, let's just bring in another, another woman. We Penn
Densham is Dan Aykroyd's wife available?
Exactly right.
Can we get Donna Dixon down here?
Right, exactly. Yeah, because it's like but it was like but then like Russell is trying to play the part right, and Russell is used to being the charismatic male lead, who is like just like, oh, Kim Cattrall wants to be with me, whoever.
Yeah, this movie really, and I understand like someone like Russell wanting to play against type. He would do so, I think, to much better credit in Breakdown, where he sort of plays the weak yuppie, and he does. His performance in Breakdown never gets enough credit. The fact that he took the action persona of Russell that we know very well at that point and goes, no. This guy is going to be an action hero, but he's going to be an action hero as a regular Joe thrown into extreme circumstances. Yeah. I'm not going to be super strong. I'm not going to know martial arts. I don't know how to fire a gun. Right. I'm going to be perpetually nervous, and I'm basically going to survive simply because I have the will to do so, and I get a few lucky breaks. And he plays all that. Never at one point is he like, right, saddle up the horses, Pilgrim, we're going hunting. Like he never goes into his full Snake persona. And I think that's when I think of Kurt Russell, as while many, many people will say, he's always Kurt Russell, I 100% don't agree. Yeah. I think he is a phenomenal actor who puts nuance into even a character like Snake Plissken. But and even into a character like this, I just think he's saddled with some hokey material.
Right.
Because exactly. I think that while Peoples can definitely do sort of like the fairy tale narrative as sci-fi, mixed with quite a decent amount of pathos, mixed with questions of, well, what does it mean to be a human? Like those are sort of People's sort of big tent poles, and he tends to sort of write around those things. And then like with 12 Monkeys, it's like, well, what if I'm not where I think I am? What if I'm actually in this other time? And what does that mean for my humanity, coupled with all those other things? Like, people likes to splash around in this pond. And I think that the presentation of some of that material, especially the love story, seems overly convoluted, cumbersome, and I think lets down what was probably written better on the page.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think I don't know how I think it's one of those things where I don't know how you execute that without it looking hokey, with the music and the montage.
Well, I don't think you needed the montage.
Right. The
I
Kurt Russell
think
face.
I already understood.
Right.
From Kurt Russell's slight glance when she touched his hand or whatever, to they were already acting it. I didn't need to see them licking lips at each other. Right, it's like in Inferno, I need to see Van Damme eating that woman's pie. I need to see it. I need to see Van Damme licking and chomping on that woman's apple pie in order to get the full effect of the romance that is about to blossom between them. Yeah. With Kurt Russell and Connie Nielsen, I don't need... The moment he showed up...
Yes.
And essentially, if Peoples could have written, ooh, woman, like that's how he played it, because he kind of woke up and immediately, of course, she was like mopping his wounds and...
Right.
Oh, what is this strange woman that I have to deal with, right? This... From that moment on, I've seen enough movies where I'm like, oh, if anything happens to Pertwee, they are having sex.
Right.
Like they are, and how long are they waiting? A week? Probably not even that.
Right.
Probably 4 days.
No, it was like the moment they got on the ship after everything was done. They were, which again,
Pertwee was barely cold in the ground.
Right. Exactly. It was like you knew he was dead the moment that Russell made eyes and they made eyes at each other.
Right.
You knew he was dead because that was the only way it was going to work in the movie. Right. Which is just like, why? Like, again, like...
Well, this movie is full of what I call like the cliche shortcut, which is how do we get out of this situation so that he can fuck Connie Nielsen? Right. Oh, well, of course, his best friend has to die. Like, it's just the cliche shortcut, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but I think what it does, like, it betrays other parts of the movie that
does,
even though they're tropes or cliches or whatever, they just worked that in a fun way.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, I think, you watch this one with friends and it's like, you're going to see that scene and you're just going to laugh. Like, and I think it's okay to laugh at. I think it's, it's funny.
Yeah. I mean, this is going to be absolute sacrilege, and people might go, how has this guy hosted a movie show for as long as he's hosted? But I prefer this to Blade Runner. I genuinely do. Because there are too many cuts of Blade Runner. And everyone has an opinion on what is the
Well, that's true.
cut.
Okay, that
and
part. I will give you that.
Tired of it, man. Because I watched one of the cuts, have an opinion on the film, and then people go, what cut did you watch? Doesn't fucking matter what cut I watched. Doesn't matter. If the script is there, and if the acting is there, and if the directing is there wouldn't be 18 fucking cuts of the thing.
Yeah.
Well, if you watch the final cut, that's not as good as the director's cut, which is only half as good as the theatrical cut. Shut up.
Yeah.
Like, I could show you any cut of Army of Darkness, and it should work as Army of Darkness. And your opinion on Army of Darkness is good whether you watch the European, the American, or the director's cut of the film. Similarly with Dawn of the Dead. If you watch the Dario Argento cut of Dawn of the Dead, and that's the only one you've ever seen, you've still seen Dawn of the Dead. Yeah. So you don't get to go, well, only one version of Blade Runner is a good version of Blade Runner. No, you don't get to do it, and I've run rings around you logically.
Yeah. It's funny. Recently, I watched Superman 2 and then the Donner cut of Superman 2. And even though they're very different, right, there's like different scenes and all this stuff, to your point, the basic story and concepts and things like that, even though there's differences, they're the same movie in that sense. Like, I don't, it's not like Donner, his version was so much better than Lester's. Right. And it's like, no, they both have the same kind of hokey, they still do the...
Would Donner have included, isn't there a scene where like a bathroom blows away and a guy's covered in soap and runs off screen or something?
I think
at the end, where during the whole wind taking over the Manhattan city or whatever, isn't there? Or a guy's wig blows off or something.
Right,
and he
yes,
goes running after.
Yeah.
There's a lot of slapstick Richard Lester, Peter Sellers nonsense in that
That's right,
sequence.
yeah. Lester's... he doesn't do it as much in part 2 as he does... When he gets a hold of part 3, it's all that. But part 2, he does... You're right, he does a little bit, but he was still a little bit more beholden to Donner's,
My feeling was that when I rewatched Superman 2 recently was that... And I say recently, I mean within the last 5 years... was that it was even more ridiculous and slapstick than I remember it being. It wasn't the wonderful movie that I remember it being. It Lester kind of fucked it.
Yeah, because Donner's parts of it were similar. Like it wasn't. I guess it wasn't quite. You're right. It wasn't quite to. Lester does put a little bit in there. He tempered it a bit as well, but it was I guess you're right. Like when he replaced scenes, he was doing more of it. But some of the ones that were in the Donner cut, like the kid falling over the ledge at the Niagara Falls, that was in there too. So I
feel like Lester is sort of what John Landis is to Beverly Hills Cop.
Oh, right.
You can watch it, but you have to watch it as a Landis movie.
Yeah.
So Superman 2 you have to watch as a Lester movie rather than a Superman movie.
Yeah. Because it's not to the same degree as Superman 3. Superman 3 is just all Lester, all slapstick all the time. And part 2, the Donner cut of it felt like it still had enough of I guess you're right though, that you're right. It does have more of that slapstick stuff. I don't,
But I think Superman's a hard character to do because you can't go wacky with him. Because it doesn't really... It's a bit like Captain America. You can't go fully wacky with him.
Right.
But if you play him to square-jawed, peace, love, and the American way, he's just boring.
Right.
But he should never... I mean, the two things... he should never be foolish. Truly... And I don't mean Clark Kent. Clark Kent should be foolish. The way Reeve plays Clark Kent is... Oscar-worthy. It's Oscar-worthy. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's like Lloyd.
Harold Lloyd, yeah.
Yeah, Harold, yeah.
But subtle and beautiful and wonderful.
Yeah.
And I'll always give him credit for that. You believe, just like you believed A Man Can Fly, which was the sort of tagline of that movie, you also believed that no one would notice that Superman was just a guy with glasses on because how different Reeves played
Yeah.
And that is a real deft acting job, you know, and again, does not get enough credit for it. I'd be interested to see this new documentary that's coming out with him soon.
Yeah.
But I think they really hampered the Superman franchise with the wrong directors, I think.
Well, and I think the other thing, too, is that Superman 1 is so good, and it's different, like where Kevin... I pronounce it the way we're pronouncing it, Kevin Feige. Yeah. Kevin Feige says he watches the first Superman every time they make a new Marvel movie. Well, it's perfectly fine for Marvel to do that because they can just pull what they need from it and then go about doing the rest of it. Whereas for Superman and with Batman, right? Batman is completely separate. Like Tim Burton makes his own Batman, and now everybody can make their own Batmans. Now Christopher Nolan can make his own Batman. Ben Affleck can be his own Batman. But Superman was such like the archetype of like comic book movie that like I don't know like how DC makes another Superman movie and it's not just going to be like, oh, it's not Christopher Reeve as Superman. Like I think I don't really know why they recast Superman or why they ever thought that Zack Snyder was the way to go because I could have told them what a massive mistake that was. Oh God, what a mess. And Kevin Costner, he just so Kevin Costner's. I mean, you watch that first Superman where you've got Glenn Ford who just has a heart attack. You know, he tries to run with his son and he has a heart attack. And I always people out there who are fucking Zack Snyder enthusiasts or Zack Snyder apologists. Right? What does Superman learn from his father having a heart attack versus what does Superman learn when his father, needlessly, I might add, completely and utterly needlessly sacrifices himself to a hurricane? Right. Yeah. What are the two messages there? Right? That's my problem. Is that Zack Snyder epitomizes, as does almost every Hollywood remake in the last 20 years. To paraphrase Sherlock Holmes, you have seen but you do not observe. Right. Meaning that they watch these original movies or they watch these original superhero films and they go, well, yeah, the dad has to die, right? And you go, no, the point is not that the dad had to die. The point is that the dad dies of a heart attack. It's why the end of Superman ruins the beginning of Superman. Yes, yeah. But also why I understand why they're like, well, he never learned the lesson of whatever. But then they didn't go on and do like a Superman pays penance movie, so it becomes a problem. Yeah. But the whole point is it's meant to be there are some things Superman cannot solve. There are some things Superman cannot fix. That's meant to be the whole point of that message. Not Kevin Costner, because he's Kevin Costner, needlessly sacrifices himself to a storm that his own son could quite easily get him out of. Right. In fact, his own son could pick up those women, fly them halfway around the world, drop them, fly back to his dad, save his dad, pick him up, drop him in the Bahamas, put a coconut drink in his hand, and then fly off to London and give some ridiculous speech in the House of Commons, all within the time that hurricane hit the car. Right. But no, Kevin Costner wants to fucking, I'm stepping out of this picture, son. No, I can easily save you, Dad. No, don't save me. Yeah. No, but I can save you because I'm Superman. I am like the whole point is that I can save you. But he's I'm Kevin Costner. I have to have my moment. I have to have my Kevin Costner moment. It's like the worst. I hate Zack Snyder. I hate Zack Snyder so much. And the person who suffers the most out of that whole thing is Henry Cavill. He seems like a perfectly decent guy. I would love to see him continue as Superman. Yeah, and he gets a short end of that. So, it's. But I would have liked to have seen Brandon Routh continue. Yes, and they did. Yeah. They only gave him one movie, and I thought he deserved much better. I mean, the movie he was in was poop. Right. But he was very good in it. Right. Yeah, and now he's doing Christmas movies on Lifetime, unfortunately. Yeah. Oh, Kevin Smith film. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like. But it's odd to me. Yeah. But so going back to Soldier and liking it more than Blade Runner. What I mean by that is, look, it's Soldier is far from perfect. Right. It really is far from perfect. But it both borrows enough tropes that I'm enjoying, while ladling on a little of the David Peebles sci-fi allegory stuff, while giving me like Kurt Russell as Commando,
it's sort of like a PM entertainment movie with a budget.
Yes.
That's what this is.
Right.
It's like a PM entertainment movie with a budget. And I sort of love all of those aspects of it. Does it have some horrible, clunky moments? Yes, 1,000%. Right. And does it piss a lot of money away on things it doesn't need to? Yes, 100%. And when Sean Pertwee's character died, did Kurt Russell's character secretly think in his head, now I can fuck your wife? The answer is yes.
Right. Exactly.
And again, it's to your point, because the audience, and this is another problem with Soldier, so I'm going to now attack Soldier for the same thing that I would attack Hack Snyder for. Because the audience wants Sean Pertwee to die,
right,
so that Kurt Russell can have sex with Connie Nielsen, because the audience is way more invested in that than they are in whatever Sean Pertwee is doing. Because they're like, Sean Pertwee is just too good to be true.
Right.
Sean Pertwee is too good to be true. We want a little bit of rough around the edges Kurt Russell. He's seen some action. We want to see some action, if you know what I mean, and I think you do. And so the audience wants Sean Pertwee to die.
Yeah.
That's not good. I meant to like Sean Pertwee, not will him to die.
Yeah.
And so I think, him being the thing that stands between Russell and Nielsen consummating this bizarre affair that's scored by Enya and all communicated in furtive glances, like this is a 1930s Noel Coward play, where people walk in and out of rooms and go, "Oh, darling, I'm sorry, why am I here? Oh gosh, oh shucks, anyway, Ethel, it's time for dinner." Oh, and then shuts the door and then goes downstairs and goes, "Why couldn't I just tell her that I love her?" Like, it's this sort of level of, you know what I mean?
Well, cause,
like the costume dramas of old.
But, and again, like, this movie had a $60 million budget. You're going to tell me you couldn't spend a little bit on a female character actor to play Pertwee's wife and have Connie Nielsen play the sister and have him just watching her, like, doing the laundry and stuff with the sister, and so then we don't have to root.
Yeah, let's have a laundry scene, Matt, with two of them.
Right, exactly.
Let's Connie Nielsen have. Now we get back to that guy who was writing on The Kiss about lesbianic incest.
Right.
You're the guy, aren't you? Writing the trivia where you're like, it's a good movie, but it would be great if Connie Nielsen and Sean Pertwee. Let's put a character actor in there. Let's just say, I don't know, Joanna Pacula or whatever her name is, Pacula. Joanna Pacula and Connie Nielsen, maybe they're doing laundry.
Pacula would have been perfect for the older sister. She wouldn't have cost that much. She's
Not
married
at all.
She's married to Pertwee, and they've got the kid, and
her and Connie Nielsen are in a laundromat somewhere on this desolate moon.
Right, just
and they get laundry. They get a little steamy because of the dryer sheets. And, maybe, just maybe, and then you'd go on to IMDb and be like, I think Soldier would work a lot better if it had explored the incestual lesbianic relationship between Joanna Pacula and Connie
Leonard Maltin
Nielsen.
would have liked it better.
Yeah, Leonard Maltin would have liked it if there was a lot more lesbians in it. I'm sure he would have done. Maltin, you filth basket. True story. Yeah. Maltin likes a scissor session. So, I have it on good authority. Yeah. People have said, allegedly,
right.
The rumor mill would have it that Maltin's a little bit of a randy bastard for the old lesbo action. Listen, I'm just going by what it says on IMDb trivia. I can neither confirm nor deny the alleged loving of lesbians by Maltin.
We could see what he thought of Bound in '96, because I know Ebert had that. I think it's one of his top 10 for '96. He had
Of course he did, because Ebert was frotting violently in the cinema while he was.
Can you imagine watching? I guess there must have been a point where he didn't watch movies in the theater with the common rabble anymore. But can you imagine like in the 70s?
He watched it in a vast teacup-sized chair in his own private screening room By teacup, I mean like teacup ride.
Right.
You know, like there's enormous like teacup ride size, but this is like a big gold and red leather upholstered throne to Ebert's giant ego.
I can imagine.
And he just sits there and he goes, John Carpenter films, thumbs down. And you're like, fuck you, Ebert, and everything that you stand for. Being like, well, I thought the Coen brothers' first film was interesting, but I thought that Raising Arizona just was entirely too foolish. Ebert, you've been warned. Yeah, find out what he thought about the lesbian action of Bound. And maybe the sex scenes in Spader's Supernova.
Yeah.
But I liked it, and I liked the Sean Pertwee, Connie Nielsen bit. But yes, it was ridiculous. It was basically there were vast sections of it that were basically the handy woodsman who the maiden of the house. Do you know what I mean? She's out scrubbing clothes against a washboard,
right.
in a lake in Mississippi, perspiring gently. And then out of the woods comes some shirtless hunk with an axe. And he just like bends down and puts the logs down by her feet and goes, "For you, milady," right. And then like walks off again. Yeah. And she's just, the vapors, every time he comes out of the woods with a different implement of death.
Right.
Often with he's got 3 sheep slung over his shoulder, right. And he just flops them down. He's like, "For you, my lady." Right. Like the beginning of Princess Bride with "As You Wish" or whatever. Like whatever she tells him to do, he's just, and she's always just scrubbing with the washboard.
Oh yes, yeah.
Perspiring. Her house dress has just popped open a little bit, right. Just revealing enough 18th century cleavage to get the woodsman hot under the non-existent collar because he's taking his shirt off. Like when they made Pride and Prejudice sexy and it was all Colin Firth coming out of the water and people were like, "God blimey, Colin Firth in a wet t-shirt competition, sign me up, mate." Right. Remember when they made Pride and Prejudice all like, "Oh my goodness, Colin Firth on the BBC at 8 o'clock at night. Oh, cover up, Colin." Oh, said grandmas across the nation. "Grandpa, could you go fetch me some tea and biscuits? I want to be alone with Colin Firth. I'm overcome." Well, that's what this movie was like. Right. Kurt Russell would come in holding a tray of potpourri or something that he'd been gathering in the non-existent woodland or whatever that's outside. And he comes in and she's cleaning a child in a tin bathtub or something. And he'd be like, "Oh, I didn't realize. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. I brought this. Oh, gosh." And then he'd put it down and run out again. And it's basically the equivalent of the English, "Oh, Marjorie, Oh, gosh darn it. If you've ever seen Brief Encounter with Trevor Howard, the whole movie. They're having a love affair, but the whole movie is just he touches her shoulder and she's like, "Oh, not in public, Gerald." "Oh, I'm overcome." By the shoulder touch of Trevor Howard. And he's like, "Damn it, do you think people knew because I touched your shoulder that secretly we're fucking every lunchtime?" "I think they know, Gerald." But yes, that's what all British drama was, and that's what Soldier was like.
Well, it's okay. So,
with a Commando Rambo ending.
But it's all that. But it's not just Trevor Howard stumbling over his words. It's right. If Trevor Howard was just sitting there, staring, as the montage is kind of flowing over him, and then going.
Yeah, he's stumbling in his head.
Right.
Kurt Russell is projecting.
He's just staring
when
there.
He walks. Yeah, when he walks into a room and just stands there, you feel all the awkwardness without Russell having to say a word.
Right. Yeah, but it would have been, like you said, it would have been a lot more fun if we didn't have to bump off Pertwee to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because for the whole movie, we're like, well, look, this is one of two things are going to happen. Either he's going to cheat on on Pertwee, right. Which can't happen right. And redeem him. There's no way to redeem him if he cheats on Pertwee. Yeah. Just none at all. Or you have to suddenly make Pertwee really a bad man.
Yes, yeah.
You have to show that suddenly, even though he's been nothing but inhumanly nice. Right. Yeah. To, by the way, this Kurt Russell, trained over 35 years, killing machine.
Yes.
that he lets into his home with his wife.
Right.
He's been nothing but understanding, empathetic, kind, loving, and everything.
Yeah.
You have to either turn him on a dime and make him a right bastard.
Yeah.
Maybe like rapes Nielsen or something horrible like that.
Or like he turns over, he works in cahoots with
Jason Isaacs.
Jason, yeah. That's
so in other words, the only other thing that they can do is kill him.
Yeah.
And then we're okay with it.
And that's what they did.
Yeah, and how okay were you with it? Man?
No, I did, it was one of those things where I was like, come on, after Russell, I liked, he was my favorite character. So I was like, like you said, he comes off really nice. He's, I
think you've got to give that 6 months. You've got to give that 6 months.
Yeah.
Maybe you can do some over the clothes work at about the 3.5 month mark.
Right, but you can't. Right? Yeah, no.
You can't go skin on skin until at least the 5th to 6th month mark, I think.
Yeah.
You need 2 months, by the way, where you both wear black and don't touch anything at all, not even walls.
Right, exactly.
And you just skulk about supermarkets. That's what you need, because we need to know that you've flagellated yourself.
Right.
Then you move to, like, pouring tea, and when a slight droplet spills out of the teacup coquettishly, you go with a napkin to, like, dab her thigh or something because the tea splashed on her thigh, and she grabs your hand, and in that moment your eyes meet. You're allowed to do that at like 3.5 months, right?
Right.
But then you have to let her wipe her own thigh. You can't wipe the thigh.
Right.
By 5 months you can possibly wipe the thigh, and then you're not getting anywhere near the crown jewels until at least 7 or 8 months.
Yeah.
In my world, in terms of moral superiority or whatever you want to call it.
Well, and I also think Pertwee, his character is so nice that when he's dying next to Russell, who's like realizing he can't save him, and he's like, you got to leave me here. I'm going to die. In his head, he's also thinking, you're going to go fuck my wife. But he's so nice, he's not going to say it.
No, but he's thinking.
Right, yeah.
Pertwee, if I was writing this film... Pertwee would, like, in his last gasping breaths, while his bloody fingers are just touching, like, Russell's perfect cheek, and he's just touching, don't let me go, don't let me go. I feel cold, like he's dying. The last words that come out of his mouth is, please, Todd, don't fuck my wife, don't fuck my wife. And he dies. And then Russell is just sort of left holding him, and he's like, what do I do with that? What do I do with that? He's dead. He doesn't care. He's dead. He's not coming back to life. This isn't Return of the Living Dead. But if I now go fuck his wife, I'm the worst man on the planet. Like, I am a scumbag at the level of Adolf Hitler. But again, Matt, I subscribe to the when you're dead, you're dead.
Yeah.
So I don't really care what you said when you were alive. Once you're dead, you're never going to know.
Yeah. Well,
you're never, ever going to know that I'm going to fuck your wife. And I'm not even going to wait 6 months to do it.
I will say, that would have been kind of selfish for Pertwee to be like, don't fuck my wife. Because it's like you said, he's dead. He's going to be dead.
Yeah.
What is,
But he's like, don't.
Right.
And Kurt's just like, yeah, but, over time... when a few months have passed, if she needs a shoulder to cry, no, not even then. Not even if she takes a fleet of inappropriate lovers, all of whom treat her like absolute garbage and do just such depraved sexual acts to her that she is the shallow husk of the woman she used to be. Not even then are you, Kurt Russell. The entire Minnesota hockey team can fuck my wife. But you, Kurt Russell, never. And Kurt's like, no, but like over time. Like a few, like let's say, I'll give you a year. And he's like, not even a year. And he's like coughing up blood and stuff. And he's like, no, not even a year. Not even if the entire armed forces of Quebec soil my wife's bed sheets. I'm like, so wait, she can be, let's just say it, gangbanged by the entire military forces of Quebec, Canada. But I, your best friend, the man who loved you, the man who you are dying in his arms, I'm not allowed to sleep with you. No, you're never. Even if she pleads with you, even if she begs, even if she gets down on all fours and barks like a dog.
Yeah.
Kurt Russell just like fucking shoots himself. He's just like, I can't.
Yeah, that's the end of the movie. Yeah, after he saves everybody. She's like, why are you killing yourself? Your husband said that I can't have sex with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He actually got very graphic about the Minnesota hockey team soiling your bed sheets and attacking you in such a rambunctious sexual fashion as to leave you the shallow husk of the woman you once were. He said he'd be absolutely fine with that. No problem. No problem with that at all. No problem with you appearing in a military Quebec-themed bukkake playhouse. But if you were to so look at me wrong, he would know and he would curse our lives together forever. I mean, that would put a spook on a man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's nothing you could do. The death wish, you can't.
Nothing.
You know, the dying wish, you can't.
Although Pertwee seems to think that his wife is about to get up to some heinous acts.
Yes.
In his...
Well, because that's the thing, right? Because he's such a he's that nice of a guy that he knows Russell is just waiting for him for the last heartbeat so he can bury him and go fuck his wife. And he's like, I'm not going to say it. You know what? This is my. No. I'm not going to taint my death with anything petty. Right. I'm just going to thank him, and I'm going to die like this.
But that's his last thought, though.
Yeah,
that's his last thought.
Yeah,
his last thought is the image of Russell penetrating his betrothed.
Right.
And it is.
People
it's
gave
horrifying.
us this because he was he just didn't want to have an extra woman in the film.
Yeah,
all he had to do was write another character.
He could have just Joanna Pacula was available.
She would have done it. Just put her in there. She's Pertwee's wife, and then it's not even his sister. It's her sister. So he can't even. He's not even like, you're gonna don't fuck my sister, right? Because it's like, no, it's like not even your sister. It's Pacula's sister. Connie Nielsen is Pacula's sister. So you don't even have to worry about that.
But they definitely have underlying lesbian interests in each other. Yes. Otherwise, we will not get a good review from Leonard Maltin.
Right.
But no, it goes full-blown commando at the end of it.
Yeah.
Lots of explosions, lots of fights, lots of sweating in the rain and flames and everything else. It looks the absolute business. Kurt Russell does really well in the film. Yeah. He really does. Connie Nielsen does okay in the movie. Sean Pertwee is great. Gary Busey is mad. It's missing Brian James and Joanna Pacula. But apart from that, I have to say that it is one of those where people are like, oh, I heard it was the worst film ever. This is very, very, very far from the worst film ever. And just think of it like Escape from LA. If you can find the right eyes and the right headspace to watch Escape from LA and see it for the fucking awesome sequel that it is, then you can enjoy Soldier. That's my ultimate review.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like Escape from LA better than this one. But it's definitely one of those ones that the commercials, when I think of the commercials, and maybe I should see if they're any on YouTube before we did the episode to see if they were as bad as I remember them. But I just remember, I mean, it didn't do it any service, like didn't do it any favors. No. It looked horrible. And so I was like, well, I'm never going to watch this. There's no point. Now, when I go on IMDb, there are a lot of people that are championing this movie now. They're talking about how great it is and everything. And so,
oh, really?
Yeah, there are definitely some fans of it on IMDb in terms of like the user ratings. And, I don't know if I have it that high. I mean, I know it's funny because I gave, the Kiss 3 stars, and I'm kind of verging on 3 stars for this as well. And they're completely different 3 stars. Like how they come about getting their 3 stars. They're completely different. But I do think this movie, it like you said, there's nowhere near worst movie of all time. There are so many movies that are way worse than this movie. I don't even know if it's like for action movies of the 90s, like big budget action movies of the 90s, that I'd have it in a worst category. I think there is definitely other ones. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there's definitely, Waterworld with Kevin Costner. I mean, I think that's worse than this.
Costner, really. Except Untouchables. I like that one.
Yeah.
But, a lot of people talk about, we have this running joke now on the show about great runs, people who have great runs in movies. I have to say, Kurt Russell, from 86, even if we don't even take an Escape from New York, you've got The Best of Times, Big Trouble in Little China, Overboard, Tequila Sunrise, Winter People, I don't know what that is, but it gets 6.2, so it must be decent. Tango and Cash, classic. Backdraft, great. Unlawful Entry, creepy and great.
Yes.
Captain Ron, a little better than you remember it being. It's actually not so bad. Tombstone, one of the greatest movies ever made. Yes. One of my top 5 greatest movies ever made. Forrest Gump does the Elvis Presley voice. And then you've got Stargate, Executive Decision, Escape from LA, Breakdown, and Soldier.
Yeah.
That's a run.
Yeah.
That's a run. Yeah. That's a 12-year run of pretty great movies that is then only soiled by 3,000 Miles to Graceland, where at least he gets the best part in it.
Yes.
And he gets to do the Elvis moves over the end credits. But in general, is not a great movie. But up until then, a fantastic run.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, he's always kind of been known as, from especially 80s and 90s, kind of that mid-80s to the mid to late 90s period as one of the greats. And I think that may have also hurt him with Soldier as well, because I think people had an idea of what they thought Kurt Russell was, and when they saw that he was going to be in Soldier, and so there's a few things I think that hurt this movie. I think it's that. I think it's also that the audience had kind of shifted away from these kind of action movies. Especially, I always think like 1994 is kind of the starting point, and then it's just like each year after there's like one, and I think then 9/11 kind of kills the whole thing off, because then it's like, well, we can't have, it took until like Avengers in 2014 to make movies where buildings are blowing up in New York again. Right. But I think. I think Russell. I think that all of that makes it so that this movie was like one of those ones that people just didn't touch. It looked like, I don't know, like Crystal Pepsi or something. It was like one of those things where people, whether it tasted good or not, it didn't matter. People weren't going to bother with it. Right. And maybe that run in a way hurts this movie, because that run was so fantastic that people looked at this as the dud. Right. When it really wasn't the dud. It wasn't the dud in his career at that point.
No, but also that run of 5, Stargate, Executive Decision, Escape from LA, Breakdown, Soldier, you would be forgiven for thinking that he is basically all the same kind of anti-hero action star in each one. But actually, again, vastly different characters in each film. Yeah. You don't, here's the way to put it. You don't watch this movie for Kurt Russell because he's not at his most Kurt Russell-ness. Right?
Right.
However, you do watch this movie for Kurt Russell because under him not being Kurt Russell, he's being what Kurt Russell truly is a phenomenal actor. Even in the worst bit of like comic book.
I totally agree. Okay. Yeah, and I think now that we're so far, we're what 25 years, 26 years past this, I think it's safe, maybe is the right term. People can go and revisit this one, or visit it for the first time, because I think a lot of people are like us who just never saw it, never got around to it. I think you can watch it and take, none of that baggage that was there in the late 90s for it is going to be there now. And, you can watch it just for what it is, and, all the warts and flaws and everything, but also the nice and good parts as well.
In general, this is a very transitional time in cinema. So the late 90s into the 2000s, it's very difficult to pin down kind of what the look and feel is of the movies of those days. And to quote something from a movie from that era, Strange Days, in it, Tom Sizemore talks about, we'll never make another 100 years because everything's been done. Every hairstyle's been tried, every music's been tried, every drink, every whatever. Yeah. And it is true, as we go into the 2000s, because there's no way to sort of define the noughts, the tens, the 20s so far, because they are such a hodgepodge of cherry picking from the previous 100 years. that it is odd to think that, this comes out right on the cusp of, well, who are we going to become? As a cultural people.
No, I think you're absolutely correct. This movie is as much that, I think, as it, and when you get into the 2000s with the TNT New Classic period, where they're just grabbing movies from kind of just slightly before this era, and they're just giving them new life on weekends on TNT.
Right.
This movie got passed over for that. This was not one that they were going to consider for that. They were going to use. It's not. I don't think it's a Warner Brothers film, but they don't have it on Max or anything like that. So it's kind of been lost to time in a way. But everybody knows it. It's not like a forgotten movie, because if you mention Soldier,
right,
everybody's got an opinion whether they've seen it or not. So it's not like it's one that everyone's forgotten.
The bloated budgets of both this and Escape from LA, both of which probably, again, 8 or 9 years earlier could be made for a lot less. I think we're also at a point which sort of now comes every 10 years, but sort of used to come sort of every 20 years, where excess builds, and then like the bow breaks, right? And then we have to kind of go back to austerity, and then, it builds again. And I feel like this and Escape from LA were to some extent typifying that age of excess in a weird way coming to an end, only for then blockbusters to sort of rise again 10 or 12 years later. Because I think, as I say, the excess comes back.
Yeah, I mean, I think people might look at movies like The Marvels the same way. In 25 years, people doing podcasts then are going to look at The Marvels and say, like, yeah, what was so bad about this movie? I don't understand. They're going to miss some of the aspects, like, for example, the building of the Captain Marvel character. She probably needed her Superman too. Like, she probably didn't need to jump into a movie where she's getting watered down with, but they also spent $225 million or whatever it was, $250. It was like, did it need all that much money for an hour and 45-minute movie? So all of those kinds of things. And I think it's kind of similar thing with this movie, right? It's like, did it need $60 million for an hour and a half? Probably
because
not.
Make no mistake that $60 million in '98 is almost the equivalent of like a $200-300 million movie today. Yeah. Now you have bigger budgets. Actually, no. I think Jurassic Park, weirdly enough, hovers around the same budget, and yet does a lot better in terms of sort of realism and special effects, and also obviously storytelling. But it's definitely. Back then, these were A pictures. This was intended to open big. Soldier was everywhere the year that it came out, and it did die with a fart and a whimper, sadly. But, it was a time, it was sort of the last age of excess until more recent Marvel and DC times.
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, because it's DC's probably the one that's been stung by it worse, right, with the whole Justice League debacle and all of that. And I think people thought Marvel would never face it. And then last year they still don't get it fully right, because they get the Guardians of the Galaxy movie did well,
right?
But and I guess the other part of it too is audiences age and change, and so now it's like those younger millennials that were like, I want to see every Marvel thing when it comes out. Now they've got kids, and they're like, okay, I'm going to go see one movie in the theater. What am I going to see? Well, it's going to be Guardians of the Galaxy, because I know them. It's not going to be the Marvels. It's not going to, But I think it's almost like, I wonder if Kevin Feige, if he reads the room better, because it's almost like he has this whole wealth of knowledge that he uses for these. Like, I kind of feel like he saw this whole thing coming. Okay, I know also that.
Well, that's why Deadpool and Wolverine. I know everyone's joking like, oh, he's Marvel Jesus,
right?
But that's totally why it got greenlit. 110% is that he looked around. Feige looked around and went, what character do we now own of the entire comic book realm that can come in and both single-handedly reboot whatever ridiculous, like, because there was sort of multiple things going on in and I think this is the other problem as well. In Marvel Phase 1, you have, and I know there was like the Part 1, there was like 5 phases in Part 1, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Marvel, the first 12 years, right, you go, well, we've got to establish the Avengers. All right, well, that's 6 movies there, establishing all the different characters, right? Except the Hulk, which we already did. It was a failure, but nobody remembers it and whatever. So we're going to do, Iron Man and Thor and Captain America and whatever. We won't do Black Widow. Why? She's a woman. Don't worry about it. Move on. We'll do Black Widow later and sort of try and retcon, crowbar it back into the franchise as if we always intended to stick it 14 years after Scarlett Johansson had done thankless role after thankless role after thankless role in movie after movie. Do Iron Man, or we do all the characters. So, all right, we got those. Then we got sequels to those. Right, but those sequels have to be about something. Well, we're all building towards Thanos. All right, Thanos is going to be the big bad. All right, then we're going to have Avengers. Well, what's going to happen to Avengers? Aliens. Aliens related to Thanos? We'll make sure they're related to Thanos later on in the movie. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. Right? Now, the second half of their storyline, you've got the whole Marvels and Eternals and all this sort of stuff going on, none of which anybody is interested in the slightest. Then you've got the multiverse stories where people are like, well, and you have that superpower creep thing where basically people get tired of the fact that your characters can do basically whatever they want. And you have sort of that overload, that creeping special effects and superhero nonsense and blah, 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 blah. And none of them are really telling any stories anymore. And nothing has any consequences because if someone dies in one reality, they can pluck them out of another reality. And it's, we don't know where it's heading. And then, oh no, Jonathan Majors is now an asshole and a creep and we have to get rid of him. And the only character that Marvel owned that could swoop in, comment on all of that, retcon getting rid of Jonathan Majors, retcon how time travel and the multiverse works, because they're like, well, Loki that you liked watching on TV, where the time travel stuff looks like a Wes Anderson movie shot on Instagram. Well, we'll do a bit more of that. Because they watched Wes Anderson movies and John Wick and went, people like Suicide Girls, but with like classy venues with a hint of the 70s. Great. That explains like Loki, right?
Right.
We're going to do that. We're going to throw Deadpool in, and Deadpool is the answer. Like, that's, and they tried everyone else. They tried fucking Ant-Man, and they tried Spider-Man, and they tried Ms. Marvel and all that stuff.
Yeah.
No, the only person who could do it was Deadpool.
Yeah.
But the trouble is that I think Feige just thinks that's all he has to do.
Right.
Is give us a Deadpool movie, and then whatever story they want to tell going forward will just be explained by the fact of, Deadpool unwrote the line we were going down.
Right.
And we're going to retcon everything to be about this new thing. And so, whereas the most interesting exploration of the idea of Jonathan Majors' character actually happens in Loki, the TV show, where it's much more suited to explore like deep, I hate to use the term because everyone hates him as well, but Joss Whedon style examinations of time travel, which is, I wouldn't be surprised, even though I don't see his name on the writing list, I wouldn't be surprised if Joss Whedon or one of his Buffy writers had something to do with the end of Loki, because it is so Whedon-esque, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But in a really good way, and I think that I think they draw a line now, and I would like to see them start introducing new characters with new origin movies and tell interesting stories with them. I think we kind of draw a line from all the old characters and move on, because I think they've learned that they can't keep doing that. It's not gonna work.
Now, I think people forget about the Iron Man movies, the first two Iron Man movies, is that they really established him,
Oh, I love the third one as well. I absolutely love the third one. I mean, the third one's my favorite, but yes.
But because they did the first two before they even did an Avengers movie, they did two Iron Man movies, so they really made sure. But you're right. Then they have the third one. After the first Avengers movie, they kind of introduce him to kind of the next piece. But I think I don't think they realized like what that meant. That like, okay, if we're gonna make Iron Man the guy who's the center of it all, we're gonna do two movies with just him, and focus. I mean, they added, Black Widow in the second one, but we're really going to center them around him. They don't do enough of that now. I think, Deadpool, they did, right? He had two movies that were centered around him. And so he was really established as a character. Right. Wolverine has really been established as a character. They add these new characters. I think they've got to let them breathe. They need a couple movies before they start just throwing them in with everybody else. You can't water them down right away. Right. I think it's a piece that they're gonna, but we'll see. We'll see if they do that when they introduce these new characters, or if they do like they did with Captain Marvel, where they just, let's add a whole bunch of other people with her, and not to, and people were like, I don't.
But what was her storyline though? Like, she got her origin story, but then after that, the only use she is, unless you go, because the thing is, in order for her stories to be interesting, you have to have genuine, like, distress on a planetary level.
Yeah.
Well, Marvel has made their business setting up planetary level distress over the course of multiple movies, with then the Avengers needed to come together and fight the planetary distress every few years. If you could just wave a Miss Marvel magic wand and sort this out, the Avengers movies suffer, and also Miss Marvel suffers because if you keep telling big planetary distress movies with Miss Marvel, what do the Avengers movies become? Like, what are we fighting in the big overarching thing? And it's become like the X-Files to me. I'm like, I want a Monster of the Week story. I don't care about the big over conspiracy thing.
Yeah. Well, no, I think she needed her Iron Man too, right? She needed a Mickey Rourke-esque villain who was equal to her, and I mean, that's the other thing with that Marvel's movie, that whatever Dar-Ben or whatever, that character wasn't really a great baddie. She needed a baddie that was equal to her, and maybe those other two Marvels help her a little bit, but it needed to focus on her a little bit more. And maybe it's something that is on an Earth level that's like, a Superman kind of style thing where it's like, saving. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see how they pivot from because like you said, they've kind of been given new life with the Deadpool thing, in a way that all these other franchises have not really had. I mean, I guess like DC, they kind of just went under, and they were just like, they just told James Gunn to just scrap it all and create something new. Star Wars.
The DC thing, it's very odd to me.
Yeah.
Because it's staring you in the face how to do all of those characters well.
Yes, it did, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there is... And I think this is also what sort of blows my mind a little bit. Because if you're really struggling, if you're really, really, really struggling, you have 100 years or 75 years or whatever it is of comic books to draw from.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just go, well, what story did we tell in 1975 or whatever it was? You know what I mean?
Right.
I just think that... and I think they're also trying to do way too much. Like, do a movie story or do a TV thing. But if I have to watch, 12 episodes of Loki and 3 movies in order to, go to Deadpool Wolverine, that's not great.
Right. Right, which technically you did. I mean, yeah, and you make a great point, too, I think, about the, like, you look at Star Trek, the first movie comes out, they're trying to do 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it did well in the theater, but it was like, critically, it was a flop. So it's like, okay, well, what do we do for number 2? Like, they did exactly what you're saying. They went and watched all the episodes and said, who is a character that would be a great baddie? Oh, this Khan guy from this one episode.
But they went and
great.
Did one that we'd already seen twice. We saw him in an episode and in a major motion picture. By the way, the best Star Trek film there is ever. So
right, exactly.
Why try and redo Khan? I mean, it's like...
Oh, no, I mean, the new Star Trek, for sure. They didn't need to bother. I was thinking the original Star Trek, where it was
Oh, the original, right. Let's go back to the source material. Yes, you're right.
Right, because the very first, one in 79, they were like, we don't want to be Star Wars. We don't want to be Superman. Let's do 2001. We're Star Trek. We're elevated.
I see what
we're
you're
better.
saying. I got it. Right.
And it didn't work. So then they were like, okay, let's go watch the movies or the TV shows, and let's do something for the second one. And they, like you said, it's the best one out of all of them.
Right.
And
it's
like
the least, weirdly enough, it's the least Star Trek of the lot, because Star Trek tends to be more like science fiction rather than an action movie in space. It tends to be more commenting on our current day. But we weren't feeling very self-reflective by the time we got to the early 80s. We were wanting, Thatcher, Reagan, and Coke and Pepsi, and Michael Jackson, and, whatever it is, pop socks and neon jumpsuits. That's what we wanted. We didn't want to think back. And so, Shatner versus Montalban was just about all we could handle.
Yes, it was perfect. Right. Well, because the fourth one, that's the one that's more like your Marvel, team-up adventure romp.
Well, the fourth one is more like an episode of the TV series.
Right, yeah.
Where the fourth one is like, we have an actual problem to solve, and the only people who can solve it is a spaceship with time travel. Oh, look, we have a spaceship with time travel. Let's go solve it. But it's a film about the environment and about how we treat nature and blah, 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 blah. And that's what the movie's about. And they just said it in a sort of fish out of water story. But almost every episode of the original series was a fish out of water story because they were landing on a new planet every week, and every new planet had a new problem. And the problems were generated by allegories of what was happening in the 60s. And yeah, they just did the same thing for... they go down the action-adventure Star Wars route for Part 2 and Part 3. Yeah. Then for Part 4, they go back to the original series and try and do something like that. For Part 5, they give Shatner the helm, and they're like, that was an enormous mistake. Never do that again. And for Part 6, they were like, who did a good Star Trek movie? They were like, the only man who's ever managed to do a good Star Trek movie is Nicholas Meyer. What do you mean? Yeah, he did 2 and 4. Well, let him do Part 6 as well then.
Well, because they're actually going to get Nimoy to do it, but they thought that if they had Nimoy do 6, so he's the executive producer, but they thought if he did it, it would be rubbing it in Shatner's face.
Well, Nimoy did
5
3.
turned out so bad.
5.
Right. He did 3 and 4. Nimoy did 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Because Shatner was supposed to do 4, but he was doing T.J. Hooker.
Yeah.
And so Shatner does 5. It's horrible. So Nimoy was going to come back and do 6. And they were like, no, you can't. It's just going to be rubbing it in his face. So that's right. They got the guy who did number 2 to come back and do 6.
Yeah, Nicholas Meyer, who wrote Part 4 as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because one of the things is that Guinan was supposed to be in, or Whoopi Goldberg was supposed to be in Part 6, and Nimoy's like, well, no, we can't have somebody that big in the movie. But then Christian Slater's mom was the casting director, and she knew he was a fan, so he's like, yeah, you want to be in the movie? You can be in the movie. So it was like suddenly, so yeah, it kind of goofy stuff that was happening that last movie of theirs, that 6th one. But yeah,
but all good. But I will say that Soldier is well worth your time. Yeah. It doesn't knock everything out of the park, no, but if you loosen the reins a little bit, the horse will guide you.
Yes, I agree completely. Yeah.
And you will have a good time with it. And for this delve, Matt, into both my VHS drawers of wonder and movies by famous people that I really like that I haven't seen yet, but I do own, I think this has been a success so far. I
agree. I agree. These were both
2 for 2, right?
They're both entertaining movies. I enjoyed watching both of them, which was, I think you're right. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how often this happens, but...
Well, we can but hope. Next week, we're going to do Beaks the movie. No. Beaks the movie and the Donald Pleasance film Jaguar Lives with Christopher Lee. I guarantee neither film will be anywhere near as good as this. But that's what we're doing next week. No, I'm kidding. That's not what we're doing. No, we are, Matt. You have to watch both those films. No, don't watch any of those. Don't watch any of this. No, but Matt, those are the films we're doing. No, but seriously, you don't have to watch those films. It's fine. But those are the movies we're doing. So tune in next week. Thank you ever so much, Matt, for this wonderful podcast. I'm sorry it's so late. Go to bed.
That's all right.
And thanks again. This has been great.
Absolutely. Thank you as well. It's a lot of fun. I had a great time as well.
Wonderful. And tell people where they can find you.
Oh, dtvconnoisseur.blogspot.com. That's where you can find everything. The site with reviews.
Everything the world has to offer.
Everything, yeah. Everything DT, direct-to-video connoisseur related. Novels, Don's House in the Mountains. That's my newest one. It's been out for about a year now. Pick that up on there. The podcast, which John was on recently when we did Inferno. Yeah, it was hilarious. My friend Mike listened to it. First time listening to the podcast, I was like, listen to 173 with John. So it's a hilarious one. He's like, texted me back, oh, that was hilarious. I loved it. I was like dying. It was great. So yeah, great episode there. So that's on, all major podcatchers and YouTube. I don't know if I'm going to do anything else with YouTube, but at least for right now, you can get the podcast on there.
Yeah, my Spreaker account automatically sends it to YouTube. I don't really have anything to do with it, but it does. Yeah. But no, thank you ever so much, Matt, for being on the show. This has been a thrill and a pleasure, and we'll do it all again. We will figure it all out, and we'll do it all again. Thanks so much, man. Take care.
Man. Got to run. Have a good one.